because, they were always doing. I would always coordinate what I was teaching with whatever they were performing that day
Okay,
there.
to recap what we just said, because I just realized that when I switched over, it didn't unmute us like it was supposed to, because I'm still resetting up OBS after the last computer died. Um, Stop being English majors. We have too fucking many of them. Be a theater major. It'll make you a better person. Like there was more to what we said, but that's the gist of it.
Not to
Well,
mention,
well,
you'll
my,
People
probably
will
get
still,
laid more
hey,
anyways.
it'll make you a better person, but people will still think you're a degenerate.
Yes, absolutely. You will be
what
labeled
I
a
was
hedonist.
what I was suggesting was that the theater extracurricular will make you a better English student. So to me,
And
they're one and the
here's the
Yeah, I
thing.
mean, yeah,
I don't
that's a
disagree
good
with you
point because
overall, but I'd rather them be a
that's
theater major because then their core classes change as to what they focus on. But other than that, I agree.
What I like about being an English major is you can then turn it into anything. You want to go to law school? Be an English major. That's the number one
If you
accepted
want to
major.
drink alone, be an English
If you
major.
yeah.
want to be
Like
a successful lawyer,
the
be
only
a
way an
philo
English major
major.
won't get won't be prepared for a more a more specific degree is like if they're going to go into the sciences, because generally you want like a math or science background. But yeah, generally.
Well,
But
Unless
you
you're
want
like
that
going to
with regards
science
because
to
communicator.
that's then you can be a double major because like one of my best professors in college was an English professor, and before long he found himself now he teaches at a technical college
Rich, our
in
economy just
Colorado.
imploded, and you're talking about adding extra credit hours to these kids. Their college already costs too
No, no,
fucking
no. What they
much.
found was that these engineers couldn't get and maintain relationships with the companies they worked for because they didn't have certain basic like understandings of the humanities, and so he wasn't there
That's because they
just
chose
for
the. It's because they
yeah,
chose the most introverted major they could
yes,
possibly find.
Well, but it's
yes.
also like
So
Rich. This goes into the
his
thing we were
job his
we were.
job was to go into that school and create a system like what we had at the college that I went to, whereby everyone essentially minors in the humanities in addition to all the science stuff that they have to do. And they felt like they had to do that because their students weren't, their students just weren't succeeding at in that aspect of their jobs. Like that you have to actually do have to like communicate with people and be understood and empathize and all those other
Which
things. And it
changed
was
in the
because they spent all of their
90s.
time doing sciencey stuff instead.
See, and then that changed again. And then this is why I don't focus on this because unless you're becoming a science communicator in 2025, that means almost dick.
Well, I
The
mean, he
most
got
introverted engineers are the ones that they want now because they know they're the ones who are going to get the fucking job done because most sciency type
this happened 8 years
corporations.
ago. It wasn't like 30 years ago. This happened 8 years ago where he was asked to head this new department for that reason.
Well, then I wonder how far behind the times your college was because like this has been the norm since like '05, '06.
Not my college, not my college. This
Oh,
the
is he? Oh,
technical school.
I thought he was working at one of your former
It was
colleges.
that.
Never
In
mind. That
fact, it
was
was
my
the
mistake.
same guy. It was the author who translated Xenophon.
Oh,
That
okay,
book
yeah,
that I
we've
sent
talked
you.
about him
Yeah,
before.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, but
yeah.
and this is my thing. Like this has been the norm, especially in science field, since like '05, '06, where they don't care if you're a great science communicator. They'll hire a science communicator to deal with your ass, and then they'll talk to the
But
science
I'm talking about okay.
communicator because
You'll recognize this.
because
This,
it is more
this is
cost
part of the.
effective because it is more
You'll
cost.
recognize this. This is the steam. This is the STEM to STEAM movement.
Uh-huh. I don't like the STEM to STEAM movement because it's a whole fucking push towards corporate bureaucratic nonsense of you have to be a fucking socially acceptable person to be a good and effective person at your job as opposed to being the most effective at your job. That's why I have an issue with it. We have science communicators for a reason. Not every scientist needs to be a generalist. It's just that simple.
I think most people, because you're talking about you have to be able to jump from job to job, right? Like you could be a hyper specialized person who is really good at one particular kind of job, and then that goes away for whatever reason, and then it becomes impossible for you to transfer your skills. That was the problem that that particular college was having,
Well,
and so
then they were too
they wanted
specializing because,
people
for
to have
example, ANCOM,
not
if you
not
lost your
be a
job,
generalist in terms of like being an English major and then nothing else, but having generalist skills so that they can, if they need to, adapt.
I'm aware.
Which means that yeah.
But here's the
So
thing,
they need a
ANCOM, if you were to lose your job tomorrow, how many
huh?
other engineering fields could you go into without any need of the externality of English because of the skills that you know in engineering?
I mean, it's yeah. Given my skills in like network and computer, management and engineering, the number of jobs I can fold into is quite large.
See, this came with a difference within the fields, Rich, because the market adapted to the way the education was going because the education was the right answer, not the corporate culture. And pretty much everywhere outside of the US, and this includes Canada and Mexico, which is why we've had so much of a brain drain over the last 20 years, has moved away from this model because the corporate conscious culture fucking model that we use in America is less productive, less efficient, overall more damaging to the employees, and all it does is focus on quarterly earnings reports, which can make your stockholders happy but usually makes for a very unstable and insolvent company after about a decade.
But right
You're saying
for
that you're
what
saying
is it?
hold on,
Private
hold on.
equity firms.
I just want to be clear what you're saying. You're saying that having people skills is causing corporations to collapse.
No, the
No, no,
focus on corporate
it's not
culture.
having people skills. It is overly emphasizing people
Yes.
skills to the detriment of the more technical
Right.
skills that are
Right.
needed for a
Good.
company to succeed
Yeah.
long term.
Good. So what percentage would you say is overly emphasizing? Like if you're gonna
If I had to
develop a
ballpark it without like digging deeper right now, I'd say probably about 20 to 30% of the market is doing that here in
good.
America.
That's perfect because Ambler's job was to take that program from 0% to about 20 to 25%.
Okay. I mean that means he was hitting with what was kind of the norm like almost 20 years ago now. That's kind of my point.
No, but you're saying that 20 to 25% is what they ought to have, right? You're
No,
not
no, no, that's
advocating
what no,
0.
no, that's what we have. That I wasn't
Well,
not what
yeah,
we ought to have.
okay, I'm going to ask you again. Are you arguing that because the argument was that it was overemphasized?
Yes.
Are you saying overemphasis is anything over 0?
No, overemphasis is trying to hamstring this into positions where it is not necessary. So, for example, I will use Sentinel, which is a technology corporation over in the UK. Their answer to this solution was to hire a science communicator, hire one of those generalists to be the
Uh-huh.
intermediary between the highly technical staff and the corporate staff. And that person being paid $250,000 a year more than doubled the profit of that company and overall streamlined the company to where people were be able to take more days off, they weren't having to work as long of hours, etc. And this company prospered to the point where now the average employee there works 30 hours a week and they're making full-time salary.
Okay, this was the University of Colorado at Boulder, and their problem was this was science and engineering. Their problem wasn't their goal wasn't like corporate communication. Their goal was like they were having trouble like being able to communicate the importance of science like to the public at large, like climate
That's what that
change, why it's important.
science communicator's job is too. Like to put this into perspective for any of the people who watch a lot of YouTube who end up being like in our audience, Professor Dave is a great example of this. He is a generalist science communicator. If I were running a corporation, he'd be the type of person that I would hire to deal with the public, deal with the interaction between the technical and the corporate, and the interaction between the technical and the manufacturing, because all of that needs that kind of generalist knowledge, whereas each independent field, the executives, the technical, and the manufacturing, all need their own highly specific, highly like refined skill sets that sometimes make them exclusionary and difficult to communicate. That's why you have the guy in the middle. That's why we understand the symbiotic relationship now. Go on, Despi.
All I'm saying is basically, and to put this into layman's terms, let the autists ought and don't try to socialize them, otherwise they don't get their work done.
Yes.
So what?
Yep.
So are you saying, like, so let's say getting an undergraduate degree in chemistry, right? Would you get rid of the English classes? Like no more 4 years of English?
No, I'd
Or
still
two- I mean,
I'd still require the minimum core classes, because they need to have the functionality to be able to write papers, and this will give them that level of like punctuation and all that they would need to extrapolate further when they start writing technical papers and scholarly papers. But they do not, for example, need Shakespeare. They don't need theater. They don't need creative writing. They just
Wait,
need
you mean
basic
Shakespeare?
English.
Shakespeare wasn't a shining example of how to write a peer-reviewed science article?
I'm going to tell you right now, if I were to pick up a peer-reviewed science article and it was written in iambic pentameter, I'd be looking at the date to check it wasn't April Fool's. Because first of all, that would be amazing.
Read that out loud.
But
I want
here's,
someone to read it out loud.
I agree with you, but here's the thing. I also want to meet the person who was able to write it.
I guarantee someone has done this as a prank at some point in the past.
That's why I'm saying I'd have to look at the date to make sure I'm not getting pranked again, because that would be the only reason to do this. And that's all I'm getting at is for example, Rich, you are a speech and debate coach. Yeah, obviously English is if you couldn't function in your in your profession without language classes.
That's why they made me teach AP Lit so many times.
Yeah. But for example, would you say
those
speech and debate would be a highly useful skill set in, say, data partitioning analytics?
No, but I'll tell you this. The number one profession for students who've graduated from my programs is doctor.
Good. Well, is that only recently, or is that overall?
No. Well, yeah. Well, okay. I'd say in the last 10 years. And that includes other school districts.
Well, that's why I had to ask, because if it was just the private kids, I would
like in my top 3.
No, that's good. Yeah,
it's because medical schools have come around to the idea. Both of my sisters are doctors, by the way. Both of them were biochemistry majors. Okay, so don't get me wrong.
The only doctors I would disagree with this on are research-only doctors. But other than this, I agree with you. Go on.
But but I'm not talking about just being a good doctor. I'm talking about getting into medical school. Mm-hmm. If they see that you have, like, both of my sisters, obviously you have to have biochemistry shit. Like, you have to have a whole bunch of stuff. It makes sense to major in biochemistry if you want to go to medical school. But you minor in the arts. Actually, I should say you minor in anything that's going to diversify the way that you're perceived in the school, because they want to see that you have people skills, especially like, the, what do you call it? The bedside manner, that kind of stuff. And so one sister was a ballet minor and the other one was an Italian studies minor. And in both cases, that was the thing that got them into their first medical school of choice.
All right, but okay, so
everyone and their dog had a biochemistry degree.
Working as a doctor who treats patients requires the sorts of soft skills that those sorts of arts minors tend to assist with. But that is the exception, because most of these hard science fields do not require the level of soft skill interpersonal interaction that a doctor might.
Unless it's in the corporate landscape.
All I'm saying is that the ballet makes sense because that person is used to being yelled at for no fucking reason at all.
Well, but okay,
That's
but
all I'm gonna say.
Rich, what you're trying to get at is some kind of
percentage-
like,
hold on,
yeah, I
I'm
get
going
what
to
you're
ask
trying.
Clarifying question.
Go ahead.
What percentage of chemistry and biology majors are pre-med? I don't know the answer.
That I don't know, but if I were to venture a guess, and this would be a blind guess, just based on what you need to be a doctor, I'd say probably about 40-ish. Because like there's a lot of biochem that you go into depending on what field of medicine you do. So there's probably a fair few.
Right. So So that means I would say it's not the niche exceptions. I think it's a fairly big chunk of the sciences. And if you
No. It's a fairly big chunk of the medical field, which medical is a large section of the science.
100% of the medical field.
No.
100% of the medical field is in the medical field. What I'm saying is 100% of people who are of those two majors. I'm saying what percentage of those two majors end up going to medical school?
First of all, let me correct the false premise there. No, it's not 100% of the medical field. It's 100% of the medical field that treats patients. There's also an entirely other side of the medical field that does not treat patients at all. This is the research side of the medical field. Those people need this not at all. So even the medical field is not ubiquitous, and that's kind of an commonized
pathology
point.
And medical research.
Yes, well, amongst others, but yes.
Urology.
Yeah, like this is the misunderstanding in the Dunning-Kruger of the average person when dealing with these fields, that they have no understanding of the wider implication of. They think that because doctors are the people that they see most in medicine, that's even the majority. It's not. The majority are the research side, but let's just say for the sake of argument it's 50-50. That still cuts off the other 50% from requiring this level of education and interpersonal dialogue, because they don't deal with the public, they don't deal with patients. The patients they deal with are corpses on a fucking table or fucking slides in a fucking lab. They don't deal with living patients.
Mice.
Amongst gerbils, blah blah blah, the transgenic mice, but no. But this is kind of our point. And when you get into outside of the medical field, let's say like average chemistry, which is going to be things like pharmacology, things like that might interact with the public, that's even a lower rate of people who are going to need this. That's why.
Do you know why? Do you want to know why Ambler was chosen, like, for that position?
I hope because he thinks like me, but go on.
It was because the University of Dallas, which is where he came out of, which is where I went, has the highest percentage of students, undergraduate students, that got accepted to their top medical school of choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that school attributes that to the high percentage of the humanities that science majors take at that school.
Yes, because and this is one of those things that you will find ends up being part of a cultural issue. If I was going to go back to school to go become a medical researcher, I wouldn't go to Dallas. I'd go to Johns Hopkins, or I'd go to University of Alaska Southeast, or I'd go to University of Washington.
I wouldn't go to University of Dallas either, because that statistic applies to getting the number of people getting into their medical school. It doesn't apply to them being
no, I'd have to go back.
We should probably get to the reading at some point.
We should, but we keep getting off on the tangents because he wants to touch upon other things.
Time for those of us who are in engineering it might be harmful to their futures.
No, that's not my point. My point is we focus too much on it because we are trying to shoehorn people into a particular mold of what we expect is necessary as opposed to what is actually necessary to the job. This is why I point to it being corporatocracy in push on the sciences and why it becomes a problem.
Okay. I'll just say that this last thing, and that is it's always been like my goal in education to not shoehorn people into uh,
Mm-hmm.
only prepping them for a job. Like that's been one of the things in education that's always annoyed me. I've always seen graduate school as being about that. Like it's legitimate to go to graduate school just as job prep. But to me, general education is to prepare us to like live in the world,
But
right? And I want my
when I
like
point out that this level of general education is a certain thing that you get within your core classes, and that's the kind of thing that you need.
Mhm.
You don't
Yeah.
need this higher level of humanities for a majority of people. Why is that then viewed as a negative? Because then they can view into more generalized knowledge that they then can use, where they may be going to get their masters of business, but then they go and get a secondary degree in a STEM course like biochem, or they do
Mhm.
a secondary course like robotics, etc. Like this happens too. Like you don't need to hyper focus anyone into, oh, you have to do primarily English because you need to deal with the public and help deal with your peers better, because again,
Again, that would be
we
a career prep, and I despise education as career prep
no,
unless
this is
it's
life
right.
prep, because guess what, all of us have to work. It's not a matter of
Yeah,
career
but
prep.
all of
I'm
us
not
also
planning them
have
for
to.
a specific career.
All of us
I'm,
also have to vote, and we I think we need empathy to a large degree, despite what Elon says about it being a bug. I think we need to learn those things that will help us become more empathetic, and I think that the
Rich, you know
humanities
me.
are one of
I'm big on empathy.
yeah, yeah.
Going to college and hyper focusing on skills that you aren't going to use in your day-to-day life because of some kind of corporate culture that we are foisting upon you is detrimental to your mental health. And therefore, yeah, I have an issue with this
And that's
because
another thing. Like Ambler's biggest resistance in taking his new job, for instance, was he was fighting the corporations because a lot of people were pressuring him to provide what the corporations said they wanted, rather than what a good citizen and a good human being would want. And
Mhm.
his whole goal, his whole approach was always to
and
foster
even
empathy in people and to like make them consider things that they hadn't considered before.
and don't
That
get me wrong,
like
that's a good thing. That these are laudable efforts, but in the same process, with all of our great intentions, I can. By the way, this can be 100% true of a plan that I come up with. I can end up falling into pushing this at the same kind of, like, I'm pushing people outside of what they should be and who they should be into some kind of facet of society, some kind of overarching push of society that it really shouldn't be there, just as easily, with all of the intentions of trying to fight against it. Because that's the problem with these kind of confounding variable mass population scale issues. We are taking mass population scale issues and then having to tweak variables within this niche, and this niche, and wait 30 years to see how it affects the rest of society. And most people, and this is most people, do not have the scale of reference in their brain to think on this time frame, let alone the 700-ish years that we need to do to go back to Dante and to stop Despy from wanting to roll his eyes at us now. But yes, getting back to the
all of
reading.
this has made me forget whether or not I took a pill 10 minutes ago.
Well, that also
I'm
could just
staring
be
at another
age.
pill, thinking, uh,
What kind of
"Am I
pill?
going to overdose if I take this, or am I going to like pass out later in the
What
day?"
kind of pill?
What can I say except you're
Uh,
welcome?
it's not that big a deal. It's just my metformin.
You
I
can
should probably
double
would
you
benefit
no
from an
you
overdose of
well, no, the thing is you could double up on metformin, because like there's a lot of people who are on
yeah.
just that dose normally. Because I know your dosage and we don't need to get into that. Because we talked about that before. Um, and the overdose of metformin is like half your pill bottle. And all it's gonna do is
Yeah.
basically make you shit your brains out.
No, I'm
Yeah,
aware. I was
I'm since my doctor put me on metformin, he has since doubled the dosage. So you doubling up, not going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
yeah. My understanding is it's somewhat of a miracle drug, or at least it used to be considered one. I don't know if that's changed, but
Well, the thing is miracle drug is a misnomer we need to stop using. It is a highly versatile drug that we need to stop using in case-specific issues. But yes,
Morphine was a miracle drug of its time.
so was laudanum. Yeah,
yes, I knew that.
but I have Earwell seen horsemen moving camp, begin the storming and their muster make, and sometimes starting off their escape. Vaunt couriers have I seen on your land. Oh, Artines, Aretines. This morning's fucking gonna be rough. And foragers go forth, tournaments stricken and the joustings run. Sometimes with trumpets and sometimes with bells, with kettle drums and signals of castles with our own and with outlandish things. But never yet with bagpipes so uncouth did I see horsemen move, nor infantry nor ship by any sign or land or sea of land or star. Why did I keep wanting to say sea in the middle of there?
Because land and sea is a common, a common saying.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not that low on sleep that I should be making this mistake. But we went upon our way with the 10 demons, a savage company, but in the church with saints, and in the tavern with the gluttons. Oops, gotta move. Ever upon the pitch was my intent, to see the whole condition of the Bolgia, and of the people therein were burned, even as dolphins, I forgot that word was in here. Even as the dolphins, when they make a sign to mariners by arching off the back, they should counsel take to save the vessel. Thus sometimes to alleviate his pain, one of the sinners must display his back, and in less time conceal than it lightens. Okay, so we're getting into a highly metaphorical description of like their descent through this area. I'm gonna tell you, this sounds like a goddamn fucking Dennis Leary fever dream to me. Just to be fair, like as I'm reading this, it doesn't sound scary. It doesn't sound otherworldly like I would expect like hell or heaven to be. It literally just feels like I'm on acid because of how metaphorical he gets.
I got
Yeah, I
I
was
got a
getting
request.
Spooky Mormon Hell Dream vibes.
I got a request. Could you share the reading in
Oh,
Discord?
yes, now that I'm not the one reading, absolutely, because I'm a fucking dumbass. And,
just a minor request there.
okay, but like the way that this is described is it's trying to give like evoke emotions of like you in these different environments as opposed to giving you physical descriptions. So it's like it's trying to make you see emotions and see sound in a way that like just isn't there. You know what I mean? That's why this feels like so surreal to me as opposed to like awe-inspiring of the terrible kind.
So it feels like it's trying to give you, oh shit, I forgot the name of the thing where you see sounds and shit like that.
Synesthesia.
Thank you, yes, synesthesia.
Also shrooms, but hey, both work.
Yes, but for those of you in the audience, and because we're on YouTube, we cannot advocate that you do anything illegal. So please only use legal shrooms in an area where they are legal to purchase.
Even though Doobie says he became a whole new man.
True, but he's in California. He's safe. I can go out and give him blue meanies, and nobody's gonna give a fucking rat's ass. The whole state's fucking fine with it. In fact, for those of you who are going into the medical field and didn't get scared off of it by our earlier conversation, California is one of the places where they started using psilocybin mushroom extract to treat cluster headaches, a previously untreatable form of fucking migraine headache that was a debilitating level of fucking pain for its patients. Now a little bit of micro dosing and the pain goes away.
Coincidentally, I first learned about this from the TV show House.
Uh-huh. That's actually where most of America learned about it. I learned about it about a week beforehand when I fucking read about it in fucking Nature. Which is still much later than I should have. Because you know me and my doom scrolling Google Scholar.
Yes.
Yes, and for those of you in the audience who haven't picked up on this, I am one of those generalists that I'm talking about, which is why I point out we don't need a hyper amount of generalists, because there's a lot of shit that I know the basics of that I could not do. I need my autists. I need my fucking great thinkers that are so hyper focused on what demux needs to go where that they get the job done, that I can then tell the person how the fucking piece of machinery works.
As I've heard it said, a mile wide and an inch deep.
Yep.
Well, okay, maybe I'll just say quickly. It just occurred to me a way to say this that will make sense. Maybe make a little bit more sense. There's lots of specialized programs that you run on the operating system, right? But often you'll have, like, especially back in the day when we had like DOS, everything would run on DOS, but not every program would do the same thing. We all need to have our like handshake protocol, operated.
I mean, yeah, and here's the thing. I agree that we need empathy, but I don't necessarily agree with the concept of the corporatocracy, which is that this only comes from the humanities. A lot of that could be done by giving better time allotments to students so that they have the time to socialize with their peers, which would then give them this handshake protocol naturally, as opposed to forcing a particular style of societal implication upon them, much like the church put that kind of societal implication on Dante.
And Rich, I would like to commend you for using the term handshake protocol correctly in context.
Yes, because
thank
most
you.
people.
Yeah.
Well, but
engineer at one time in the
yeah,
past.
yeah. I was about to say he used to do that job. I'll give him
Okay.
credit for remembering, but at the same time, I did remember he used to do that when
And
he
many
made
of
lots
my
money.
colleagues probably needed a 20% focus on humanities. Just so.
Yeah, that we needed to belabor their pumpkins a little. I'm aware. But that's why you need me to talk to them, not them to talk to the public. That's the point. That's where I come in.
Well, the problem was at one point I was in charge of 30,000 desktops, so I was sending all my people into the public, all of them.
Oh, Jesus
Well,
Christ.
90% of them.
Well, hold on. Where were you? Was this in Dallas? Because I know there's some buildings where 30,000 desktops is one
two
fucking
companies.
building.
TXU was the
Okay.
company in Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say, I know there's a couple of buildings there where 30,000 computers, I'm only covering like 4 floors. That's not...
That it was GTE, and yes, it was back when it was called GTE.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. The reason I ask is 30,000 desktops, for those of you who have never done information technology, that's an absolute metric fuck ton for most IT specialists. But when you're working in a high rise, yeah, it's a little different because you're working with like centerline backbones and like your own like information manifolds and.
I had about 40 high rises.
Yeah, but you get my point. It's all highly located. It's much easier to do those because of the way that the building
make it
is
as relevant as
constructed.
I can. IT would be its own level of hell, I think. If we
Absolutely. In fact, I think it might be lower than fucking Satan's ass crack. Because I've tried to fucking run those wires. My dad did satellite communications back in the 70s and 80s, so occasionally I would have to help him with some stuff. All I can say is the one time I had to help him put together a blade server fucking array, I seriously considered jumping out of that 32nd floor window. I really did.
I
This is
We were there for
this is
4
the
days.
this is the reason y'all need autists, because what you describe as defenestration generating, I would find to be nirvana. Okay.
You know, not in this time period. You wouldn't. Ancom, we were running fucking coaxial cable with a crossbow.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
No, trust me. For somebody who is not going to like the rat's nest that we have to create back at this time to build these things, you would have walked in there and it would have looked like your brain after no sleep on it for like 60 hours. Like, it would just wires everywhere.
What you don't realize is I thrive in cleaning up shit like that.
Okay, well,
Like I've gone into server rooms that look like a tangled web that 20,000 spiders collectively weaved, and going in and cleaning all that shit up.
Okay, I'll give you that. Maybe you're the one type. I'm just gonna tell you, when you're doing that and having to put the blade server array together for 4 days in a room with your father, trust me, you might have wanted to jump out the window too.
The only part of that I would have disliked would be the room with my father, right? Because the rest of it, that's 4 days that I don't have to interact with other people.
Well, yeah, but my dad was my boss at the time because I was a legit.
Yeah, that's the part that I would have found most defenestration generating.
Yeah, you have to remember, Ancom, at some of these times, because it was the 70s and 80s, I was an 8-year-old fucking wire monkey crawling through fucking moving shit. This was before labor laws for children were really like strengthened down well. Like, they didn't think anything about why this 8-year-old was out of school on a Wednesday crawling through their fucking air ducts moving wire. They didn't think about it.
My dad took me to work for similar reasons, although instead of putting me to work, he would stick me in front of a terminal, basically supercomputer terminal, where in the early 70s, I was playing a turn-based role-playing game on a monitor that was based on Star Trek. So, I was
yeah,
playing
I remember
Star
that,
Trek.
but it for those of you in the audience, he had but it was like the ships were like a big bold plus sign.
Long before that, it was text based. It was all text based. This was like Zelda, where you say, "I'm going to go to the next room," and then this.
Oh, you mean Zork?
There's no visual. No, that's not Zelda. Zork. That's Zork.
Yeah, you're thinking Zork.
Oh,
Zelda.
well, yeah.
The first one that I remember was the late 70s, and it was also Star Trek, and the ships were basically plus signs or like ampersands or things like that. Yeah, and they would just move.
Even before that, like, there's no motion stuff. There was just,
well,
you're on the bridge. Okay, go into the turbo lift. Okay, this is what happened. Like,
motion is
like a mud.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a turn-based text game. I mean, this was like
it's a mud. It's a multi-user dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. But it was instead of a dungeon, it was. I mean, yeah.
It still probably would have been called a mud, though.
Yeah, it would have been a proto mud. Yeah, it would also would have been a proto RPG as well.
Yeah,
like this would have been that. Yeah, no, it wouldn't have had these names back then. It would have had totally different names back then. This would have been like one of the games that, like, if we're talking about this in evolutionary terms, this would be like a Luca like situation to like multiple game types today. Just to be honest, Luca, last universal common ancestor. Like this is so far back that it doesn't technically fit one game type. It fits like 8 game types because it spawned all of those game types.
Apparently, it was coined in
transitional speed.
'75, so it's possible that it
Oh,
had that
maybe.
name, but because I would have been 8 in 1975. So there you go. Yeah.
And that's fine. In
What
1975,
it was the word that I was thinking of? Yeah.
I didn't think of what the game types were called. I go what was available at the latest computer swap meet.
Oh,
What disc could I get? What tape drive could I get? But now we're really showing our age because most people are going discs. What the fuck what are discs? They don't even know what a CD or a DVD is anymore.
oh, we didn't have discs in 1975.
No, we had tape
It
drives.
was
That's why I went
it
back
was
to the
actually, that particular computer was cards,
oof.
punch cards. Yeah.
Punch card transfer.
Yeah.
Oh, there's there.
If you put them in the
Ancom would have
motor,
been in heaven. Ancom was born a few
yeah.
years too late. For
Yeah,
those of
that
you in
one
the
was-
audience, go
it
ahead
was
and Google
unfortunate
punch
that I-
cards. We'll wait and just kind of chit chat for a second before Despies picks up the reading here in a second. Go look at what a punch card computer looks like and just guess at how it works.
Yeah, I love looking at those. I wish I could have used them.
Actually,
I would have probably been like not the happiest if a stack of punch cards had been dropped on the floor and I had to reorder that bitch. But just feeding the punch cards in one at a time would have been very repetitive, very satisfying.
So there is a limit to your autism.
Yeah, 52
Yes.
card pickup
Well,
is usually something that nobody likes doing. It's even
Yeah.
worse when you can't read the face of the cards because there's no pictures, there's just dots.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And if you got, like, there was an employee at his work one time that got really angry at the company. So what he did was he brought in a hole puncher and punched in a bunch of. Yeah.
Oh no.
It fucked them up for 2.5 weeks.
Oh my god. Okay. Before we get to the reading, and we are going to get back to the reading after this. For those of you in the audience, what this person did was the analog equivalent of malware. To put this into perspective, because all of your information was on
that analog, it was still digital, right? Like,
but the thing is this is what we would still call the analog period of computing. This is before full digital computing. That's what I'm getting at. Is this?
We called it digital at the time. They did, I should say.
I know, and it was digital, and it's always digital, but it's a time period.
Right.
Doesn't have to make sense. Right. We call the Chalcolithic period the Chalcolithic period because of the copper use. But guess what? There was a lot of iron use and a lot of Neolithic stone use at the same time. It just we like categorizing shit in weird ways. But like this is the equivalent of writing a virus that is going to go in and eat certain parts of your data and create new data, because that's what punching a hole in this card does. Is it either erases data because it creates a negative spot that it will then read as a stop portion to stop reading this line.
Ones into zeros.
Yeah, it's
a bit.
And so, if he does it in a very particular way,
the value of a byte, which can be
yeah, and if he does it in a very particular way, which when you get pissed off in this kind of field at this time period where the entire field in America was probably 400 people.
Well, keep in mind, the entire program was on those cards. So if you mess up those cards, you have to re-punch every card in the stack, even if he didn't do this to every card.
Yep. Well,
you don't understand it's in base code, right? It's in machine code. It's just ones and zeros.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, "Oh, he only punched holes in 10 cards," because you don't know what belonged in those 10 cards. So you have to.
And no. Depends on the generation of punch card, because a lot of them.
And it depends on if you put them in the right
order.
Yeah,
Yeah, they would have the value of the byte written in human readable text across the top. And so you could go through each card and like mentally convert the byte value that you see there, if it's an A, to what the
Yeah, the
binary,
real
you know,
fuck you would be to do
But
this,
you have to
and
do that to every card.
yes, yeah, and
Oh, yes.
the real fuck you to this would
And there were like
be,
100,000 cards in that thing.
I know, and this is the real fuck you would be to do the punch and then also put the cards back in the wrong order, because now not only do they have
Yeah,
to
that was another thing
evaluate,
that was a
yeah,
problem,
because now not only do you have to evaluate is the card right, but is the card in the right sequence and all this other shit. Because
At least that one had the sequence numbered, so
Yeah.
you could do that more easily than you could handle
Yeah.
the
But-
punches.
Oh, and
Yeah.
going back to the reading before we let Despy pick up the speaking, this particular way that he describes the last two tercets about the dolphins and the way the back enlightens and all this, he's inverting the reality, or he's talking about river dolphins, and I don't know that there was ever river dolphins in Italy. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not a cetacean specialist, but if he's talking, like, that's the only ones that I know that are light on top. So he's inverting it, which again gives that surreal feel. And because we do need to get back to the reading, because it is 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock Central for those of you in my time zone. I don't understand the necessity of the surreal like changing here. I don't know why you would do that, because the way that the rest of this is described, it's more about the arching of the back as they crest the sea, like when they're doing their little jump in the wake of a boat thing, is what he's trying to elicit the imagery of here, because you would arch your back like that. For you young people, when you finally get a bad back, craning forward like that stretches the back out, and it will kind of like relieve nerve pain from pinched nerves in the back. It seems to be what he's describing the people doing here is doing the hunch forward that would also mimic the semicircle that dolphins do when they're doing the wake diving. Despy's like, I fucking hate you. I know you're trying to bring it back to the reading, but I still fucking hate you. He's like, I could be
I
playing
also like
Monster
the beginning.
Hunter.
I have seen troops. I have seen even them. I have seen scouts ride. Kind of, I like the repetition.
Yeah, it's definitely
I have a
trying
dream.
Well, for me, especially when I looked at it in the Italian, it seems like he was trying to elicit like the cadence of like horses clopping, like ta-da, 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 is kind of how the words kind of felt when I read them out. But yeah, it's fucking Dante is fucking great at that. This is why we're doing this apparatus. But
kids, this is an example of anaphora. In case you're a poor engineering student who has to take all of these humanities classes.
Yes, and if your teacher goes that far, like I joked about with my wife that because I was dealing with somebody who was really
In
pedantic.
AP Lit, we do.
Yeah, no shit. That about splitting superlatives and dissecting participles. And she had to correct me because I had actually never heard that word pronounced. I had only ever read participle. Like when I was
now
like
that far we don't go. I've never said participle in class.
Yeah, same here. And I've always heard it participle.
Yeah,
see, that's how I said it when I read it, and she's like she corrected me.
It is, yeah, in America, but I don't know what it is in England.
Yeah, and I don't know where she learned it and
right
why
there,
it's. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know which one's right. It could be, the aluminium thing all over again. I don't fucking know.
To be fair, aluminum versus aluminium, there's a spelling difference that actually makes that one make sense.
Yes, but the spelling change. Yes, but the spelling came after the pronunciation. Look it up.
Did it?
Yeah, they originally pronounced.
Isn't that one where Webster changed the spelling on purpose in order to force a pronunciation change?
Yes.
No, because the naming of aluminum. No, the naming of aluminum came after Webster's dictionary.
No.
Oh, okay.
the change, what the actual UK change to make it say aluminium for them as opposed to aluminum like we write it, came after they pronounced the word that way, not before it was in like it wasn't in a book first, then fucking pronounced that way, the other way around.
So did they add the I or did we subtract the I?
They added.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah,
U.S.
Yeah, okay,
very
so
rarely adds letters.
Yeah, we
but almost always
in
subtract.
in Britain it is
Oh, he
participle.
would have subtracted the letters, would have.
So
If it was them that
in
did it first.
in Britain it is participle, but in the U.S. it's participle.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Somebody
And
taught
by
you
the
the
way,
good
for
way
those
when
of
you were
you,
young.
we are getting really pedantic into linguistics here, but it's actually fitting because we're going over Dante, and he actually does all of this shit in his writing. And if we really wanted to get into linguistical syntax and make this a 5-hour episode, we could break out the whiteboards and start doing this for you, but you'd hate us. You'd learn something, but you'd
Don't
hate us.
you dare punish me with a good
They
time.
already hate us.
Well, I mean, for some reason, like the average of 30 to 40 people watch over like a 2-week period. I don't fucking know why.
We may have fixed that today, I think.
No,
I mean, how
because
many of us have been
no-
taking college level linguistics courses?
Rich, our number one most watched episode is the one we went on the most tangents.
Oh, well, there you go. Maybe it's
So-
good business.
Well, but I'm not going for business. I'm going for education, which is why coming soon I'm going to be releasing this Dante's Apparatus with all of these like tangents cut out eventually, and like the silences and pauses and
It'll
all
be
that
20
cut
minutes.
out as a podcast.
For the whole poem.
33 cantos, 20 minutes long, and most of it's just us reading it.
Well, no, because we'll still talk about the commentary portions where we're bringing up the history. We'll just go off. We'll the actual diversions will be
And half
cutting
of
out
it will be
eventually.
Eucharist.
No, because we don't get him on enough, unfortunately. I need to get him on again.
That's what I mean. Yeah, half of it will be Eucharist. But if he was here every day, he'd be like 90% of it.
No, because even
just saying, he
like
says most
that was the
relevant
one I
shit.
was just
Not of all of
recently cutting up, and funnily enough, Eucharist, like basically when he was here, we all had about equal talk time. It was weird. He didn't talk more than anybody else. It was just like
No, I'm not saying he talks more. I'm saying he says more relevant shit than the rest of them.
arguable.
Like we would be all taking it on a tangent, and then he'd be like
Well,
just talking about the poem.
tangential to a point, but we were a lot of the tangents we went on in that episode, which is episode 1 for those of you who want to go back and see our good friend Eucharist again. Those tangents were about Dante's life, Dante's influences, the church's influence on society around Dante, etc. So those tangents were very poignant to the social commentary that Dante is writing. Those tangents would be included. When we go off onto a tangent into genetics and taxonomy and like what classes you should major in university, that maybe we can cut into a bloopers reel.
The biological differences between river dolphins and and sea dolphins.
Well, my thing was if he's doing it just for the surrealness of it, the inversion, it makes sense. But if there were river dolphins in the Mediterranean, like that went into Italy, he may have actually seen a dolphin that had its color kind of inverted like this. So it would have just been interesting to know, and I just don't know. It's one of those questions that if you're into cetaceans, when you're reading this, you might think it. And whales are kind of cool. Let's just be honest. I mean, Japan think they're cool for a whole different reason, but
Well, those are mostly just the minke whales.
I know, but the joke still worked. But
Speaking of which,
as
is
your
whaling
whale eating,
season over with?
as
Oh, yeah.
my whale eating friend might want to pick up the reading here, we're gonna start on the brink of water. I'll have to scroll down. I'm gonna have to scroll down. Just
Yep.
tell me when you want me to scroll down, and I'll get to it because you're gonna have to go down like 2 more tur sets than what I can show you right now.
All right. As on the brink of water in a ditch, the frogs stand only with their muzzles out, so that they hide their feet and other bulk. So upon every side the sinners stood, but ever as Barbricia,
Uh, bu- bu-
Barbricia.
Barbricha, it'd be like ch, but like that
Okay,
hard, not the hard ch,
Barbri
like the quick one. Yeah.
Barbricia near them came. Thus underneath the boiling they withdrew. I saw, and still my heart doth shudder at it. One waiting thus, even as it comes to pass. One frog remains, and down others dive.
Frenchman.
And Graphiacan
I have no fucking clue. Good luck.
Grafiakin.
and
Yeah,
Graphiacan, who most confronted him, grappled him by his tresses smeared with pitch, and drew him up, so that he seemed an otter. I knew before the names of all of them, so had I noted them when they were chosen, and when they called each other, listened how. O
Hold on, let me move you up now. And
Rubicante,
you're gonna read to I in the Kingdom of Navarre, like these ones right here.
okay.
Yeah, right. So you're gonna
O
read this.
Rubicante,
I'll put my
O
cursor down.
Rubicante, see that thou do lay thy claws upon him, so that thou mayest flay him. Cried all together the accursed ones. And I, my master, see to it, if thou canst, that thou mayest know who is the luckiest wight.
Just so
Uh,
you know, Grafiakan literally is the devil's name here. It means dog scratcher.
Yeah, I'll be honest
Luckiest
with you
white would
because
be
I knew I was gonna butcher the pronunciation. I just
Thus
called it
come
graffiti in my head.
into his adversary's hands, near to the side of him, my leader drew, asked of him whence he was, and he replied, I in the kingdom of Navarre was born.
No, keep going to the heat. That whole point.
Oh,
Yeah.
to the where?
The to in this heat. I have my cursor at the end of the line.
Okay. My mother placed me a servant to a lord, for she had borne me to a ribald knave, destroyer of himself and of his
Ribald.
things. Pardon?
Sorry, it's Ribald.
Ribald.
I've heard it
Okay.
pronounced both too, so it's fine.
Then I
Very rare, yeah.
domestic was the king. What? Then I domestic was of good King Tybalt.
Tybalt?
Tybalt.
Tybalt. Okay. I set me there to practice barratry.
Lawyering.
Wait, what did you
Yeah,
say?
Barratry.
barratry.
What's the line?
For
Oh, I don't know the line number because I didn't line them up.
55, I think.
No, I didn't line those
For
up.
which I pay the reckoning in this
barratry.
heat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
barratry.
Yeah, Thibault is the way I've always heard it pronounced. Like Tybalt is the like more like English pronunciation from like UK England that I've heard. Like most people in America still pronounce a little bit of the th. And going back, I'm just gonna say like ribald is the way I've heard it sung most because that's where I've heard this word most. This word does not appear normally, except for outside of drinking songs.
Just for some definitions here. So the term ribald knave, the Italian is ribaldo, and it usually refers to like a dishonest knight who
Stolen valor.
moonlights, stealing and smuggling and all that shit. The name of King Tybalt comes from the Italian Tebaldo, so that gives you an idea of pronunciation. And then barratry is a form of fraud or deception. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I always called it lawyering because it's specifically fraud or deception by trickery or deceit.
Yeah.
I just think they should let those bears stay in the tree if they wanna.
And
All right.
barratry is very close to one of the words for a lawyer,
Yeah,
like a barrister.
they have the same root. That's why.
Yep.
That makes sense.
But like now the reason I had you go so far is because first of all, like I wanted you to have the whole reading section of that spoken area.
Yep.
But this is mainly like a lot of like nothing, to be honest with you. Like this is um the for lack of a better way of putting it, this is the first time I think Dante was trying to fluff his word count in the whole piece. Because it's like it adds a lot of like secondary like descriptions and whatnot, but not really adding anything to the story, not anything, and not adding anything to the social commentary. When you look through like the commentaries on this particular canto, almost nobody fucking comments on this at all because it's just fluff, which I found interesting. It's not until we get to the spoken section that we get into the meat of like what he's trying to actually get at. So like it's an interesting portion that as we get into the latter third of the Inferno, we're seeing a shift in his writing style, and it was something Rich and I were talking about midweek before we got to do the stream again. I actually wonder if some of this is written out of order because of the way that we eventually had this released and whatnot. I wonder if he went back and like did like whole reworks on certain sections where he like redid whole cantos, because certain cantos in the end of the Inferno will sound like ones in the middle of Purgatorio or at the beginning of Paradiso, and vice versa. Like it seems to bounce around, like he went back and did rewrites before the final release. It's just interesting, and I wonder if there's other copies out there. And I dug into it. I couldn't find if there's any like pseudo copies that people have found that here's a different version that he wrote. There's a bunch of cranks, but no scholarly works on it.
This could also be the point in time in his writing in which there was there was a deficit of wine, and he could have been sober while writing it.
Also true.
Just because of something Jack said in terms of the etymology, it turns out barrister and barata or barratry don't actually share
really
an etymological root. So a barrister,
you know what they call that?
Comes from barrister comes from the term bar, meaning a collection of lawyers. So a barrister would be a member of the bar, literally. Whereas barratry actually comes from the root, same root as to barter, which it seems historically was used to be a synonym with to defraud or deceive, and has since become synonymous with simply trading. But it looks like bartering used to be a dishonest practice.
Now I'm just telling you right now. Now where I come from, we've never heard of barratry. We've heard tree of bear, but we've never heard of barratry.
And Rich, you were going to say something about, because this is essentially a convergent evolution.
This is something that I ran into a lot when I was taking Greek classes, because it happened every single fucking day. We would all get excited because we thought we found a cognate. And these are called false cognates, when words sound the same or are spelled the same, and you just assume that they're etymologically linked or that they have common origins between languages or whatever. And more often than not, it was a false cognate. It was like, yeah, you would think so, but no.
Well, no, I mean, I understand that, but this one surprises me because of the way that barratry has etymologically changed in usage over time as well, just the singular word, because that has been used as a synonym for a bad barrister. So like they've crossed paths
Maybe it
in
was
the
a
real
pun,
world
used as a
too.
pun a lot.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. They've crossed in the real world too. So like I just assume they had the same root because they've crossed in the real world like that.
There must be a word for that, like an inverse cognate, like words that
Yeah,
have nothing to do with each other, but then they became associated later because of how
yeah.
similar their spelling
I'm
or something.
sure. I'm sure if we could get our linguist guy that I emailed to fucking get back to us, he'd know
And
this
if
kind
that's
of
not a
shit. But
term, it should be
I don't know if any of
inverse
us want.
cognate.
Yeah, I don't know if any of
Boom.
us want to go
All in one.
back to school long enough to learn that level of linguistic syntax because that's that's like 3 more years of education minimum for Despy and like 5 for me.
I can
Like,
tell you, AP Lit teachers would have fun with the concept of an inverse cognate because we run into kids all the time think that they're finding cognates.
well, and some of them,
Including
like I
me.
said, there's
That's me all
probably
the
a
time.
name that we just don't know. But
Yeah,
like there probably is a lot of like interconnected inverse cognates as we're dubbing it
ask
for
a classics
this
professor.
conversation.
They're like,
But there's probably many of them due to the way that as time has progressed, our a level of
yeah,
communication has progressed, etc., to the point where like Despy and I were doing this the other day in about Japanese stuff. Like there is a lot of American loanwords in Japan that are just basically add "u" at the end of the fucking word,
right.
and it makes it Japanese.
Or
It's
oh,
well, but yeah, it's just like and they have now associated a lot of these things with America where it may not actually have been associated with America originally, but it's just we're the ones who introduced it to them, etc. Same kind of concept, just in a less connected language, considering there's less actual linguistic influence between the Asian languages and the Mediterranean languages outside of modern times. Like this is usually all like secondary influence rather than primary influence.
So, so I'm digging into this just a little bit deeper, just because I thought it was interesting. So the barrister thing coming from bar literally refers to the place where
Mhm.
lawyers and defendants and witnesses would stand in a UK court. It was
Yep.
this little barred off section. It was called the bar, and that's where we get the term there. Whereas barter
Barista, same
comes
thing.
from or it's uncertain, but it seems to have influence from both Old Norse and Celtic, where we have Old Norse barata, meaning a contest, and you have Irish brath, meaning treachery. So it looks like it's some combination of those. So yeah, very different sources for two words that sound very similar.
Well, and it's also
And barista comes from bar too. Standing next to a bar.
Yeah.
well, but
Yep.
I also find it hard to believe that the Celtic and Elder Futhark influence would be there combined because of the simple fact of like when bartering as a concept came into existence, there would have been very little contact between those two cultures. So it's possible, but at least at this time there would have been very little contact, so it would have had to have almost been like a prehistory like carry through, and we did like this route goes back even further, just because
Oh yeah, I mean,
like this
probably some uh,
like proto Frankish,
Proto-Indo-European.
yeah, like proto Frankish, proto Bavarian type thing, yeah. It's what it feels like to me based on like bartering as a concept that we understand it today of trade goods for goods um was not viewed as treachery originally in the concept of like history of that concept of bartering. Now maybe the original history of the etymological root of the word, but not the concept that most people think of when we think of bartering. um because like bartering as we apply it in like anthropology is something that applies to any kind of like pre currency good, pre-currency market system. Like this was essential. It wouldn't be treachery to quite literally trade like that. Like it doesn't make sense that that would be there unless that is a divergent from a previous, a earlier like proto word, where it did mean treachery, and then like somebody fucked off, went off somewhere else, and it became bartering because they were actually like, no, I don't know what this word is. I'm illiterate, but I think it means trade. We're good. I want to trade you for this. Let's barter, etc. Like, because I mean that, like, people forget that is kind of how language works. It's descriptive, not
Yeah,
prescriptive.
true.
And because like this goes back so far. Like bartering is a fucking old ass concept. Like like at least that as far as I remember, this goes back to when Doggerland still fucking existed. For those of you who don't know about Doggerland, look into when fucking UK was like 3 times the size it is now. It's an interesting period in prehistory. But okay, so getting back to the reading. Now we get to the I in the Kingdom of Never was born. So he's Neveries, or Neverin. I actually didn't look up what's the proper term of a person from Nevers. But like the thing that he starts describing here is the going back to the reading from our 15th tangent.
Called a Nevers again.
Neverigan. There we go. Yeah, we'll just go with that. But then it goes into describing an extremely like normal practice. Or the Dante is describing the mother putting him into servant to the Lord. This was the way of social progression, like this whole thing of like social ladder climbing we think of today. It's an old concept. Just back in the day, you used to give your kids away at like the age of 7 to a lord to basically treat like a slave until they hit adulthood. And teach them stuff. Don't get me wrong, they did learn things, but not all of them lived through it. In fact, not a great many of them didn't live through it. um, it was not the safest practice to do this with your child. Let's just put it that way. But it was very normal. And then she had said she was bored of a ribald Dave. Well, the thing is like this is an allusion to the concept here. Um, in this time period in history, and I'm just going to say the word despite because we're already not monetized, we're too small. Um, a very very common way for a maid to end up being pregnant was to either be sexually assaulted or by getting rather promiscuous with a drunken knight in the local tavern. Like this was the common way of what we would now call teenage marriage or teenage pregnancy would occur.
Shotgun marriage.
Yeah. Well, not actually at this time it wasn't even shotgun marriages because if you were a peasant, they didn't necessarily give a fuck. It was only if you were noble born and had a kid out of wedlock that you were really fucked. Like you're thinking later, like 1600s, where Puritan culture started to come in, where that became like for everyone. Like people forget that this changed because like fuck the peasants, Jesus Christ, are you kidding me? Like 3/4 of like UK history, peasants didn't even get married. They just had kids and just fucked constantly. Like they didn't have the money to pay the priest to get married, so they just didn't. And like Rich can back me up on this because like that like goes into when like Greek influence comes into English history, and it's just like that's like they were very very hedonistic before they knew what the word hedonism meant. Okay, Rich is lit up but not speaking. Okay, that's just
Oh,
fucking weird.
nope, I'm here. Oh, it's probably just, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
Discord
have a
being
noise
weird.
gate.
Well, yeah, but it
Every
doesn't
time I try
normally.
noise gate, it like does shit to my audio, so I just gave
Yeah,
up on
yeah,
even having.
I know, but it doesn't normally keep you lit up green like this. It's just weird. I'm wondering if it's maybe because I'm in streamer mode. I'm not
Oh,
losing
maybe,
any
or just I don't
frames.
know, air conditioning or something.
Yeah, I'm not losing.
Constant puppy whining.
Yeah, but I'm not like when I'm looking at because like I'm looking at my audio mixer and I'm looking at the desktop audio. I- I'm zoomed in to where I'm looking down to like negative 160 decibels. Nothing's cropping up. You should not be lighting up green, at least according to OBS. So I don't know what the fuck's what Discord's doing. That being said, Rich, I was gonna ask you because you're gonna remember the history of Thibault better than me. Would you mind giving us a brief history of him if you remember?
You talking about how long? I haven't even been looking at the footnotes, but I just want to make sure that it's the same Tybalt that I'm thinking of, or if
Yes,
it's
it should
it
be.
is like from Romeo and Juliet.
At least as far as I remember, yes. I didn't
Okay, let
look
me
at
look.
I didn't look
I
at the
mean,
commentary for this because I was focusing later on in this canto because this is a fun one to focus on later. But we'll get to that later. I don't want to derail again.
yeah, I mean, in Shakespeare, he's just like one of the contemporaries of Romeo. He's the son of the Capulets, um,
Yeah,
uh,
that's not
cousin to
the that's
Juliet.
not the Tybalt. That's not the Tybalt that
Oh yeah, I thought you were thinking King
Dante is
Tybalt,
referring
not
to.
Tybalt. Yeah, I was because
Yeah, I was
obviously
gonna say I don't know why that would be.
no, I thought
Yeah.
you knew
That's
King
So
Tybalt.
so
Yeah, okay, maybe
he
Ancom needs
he
to be
would.
the one.
I mean, I just looked up the Wikipedia page real quick. So it's talking about Theobald the First of Navarre,
Yeah,
who see 1201 to 1253. So
yeah, he was one of the
even like
kings
by
during the
Dante's
time
time, he would
period.
have been a historical king.
Well, because the 1250, like Dante was like doing combat, like as a youth, like he was getting in fights in his youth at that time. Like he was
I
alive
didn't think
when
Dante was that old.
I think he died at like
No, he was born
51.
in 1265. So
Oh,
by the
sorry,
time
40,
Dante was
40.
born in
Yeah, sorry,
yeah
I
yeah.
added 10 years. That
So
was my mistake.
50. Yeah, so Theobald the First died in 1253. Dante was born in 1265.
Yeah,
So by the time
I
Dante
added
was
a
born, this
decade.
guy had already been dead 12 years. Um, so like yeah, he was not maybe not a historical king if we want to like say that historical refers to a
He's Jimmy
long time
Carter.
ago, but like
He's Jimmy Carter.
he basically yes, yeah,
And for those of you who don't understand the significance of that, go look up our recently dead president. Damn it, he deserves more respect. One of the few fucking ones
yeah,
we had left who did.
yeah, he's
yeah. And
great.
so he was famous for being a troubadour, rather or like he was famous as a precursor to the word troubadour. But anyways, so a poet, composer, musician, and he was also the first Frenchman to rule Navarre, which actually I don't know where Navarre is off the top of my head. Oh,
If I
Pamplona.
remember
Okay,
correctly, yeah, it was northern Italy.
yeah. So just a little bit of historical context there. I know basically nothing else
Okay,
about
yeah,
him because I haven't had time to read the Chronicle, but
I
That's
didn't
more
realize
than
that
I
you
knew.
had just I didn't realize you were just looking at them. Okay, there's also the little bits of like the battles that his kingdom fought, etc. Like it would have been important to a cavalryman because the kingdom of Navarre were some of the best cavalrymen in other prefectures and areas of Italy would send their troops to learn from their horsemanship. It's why I know of them at all. Is because I know a little bit of like the history of like the show horses and stuff, and it comes from this area of Italy and France, very heavily. If you didn't know, like those show ponies that they used to do all that crap of constantly in the 90s. Yeah, this is where all that crap like really got like heavily started in Italy. Was it became very, very popular in the aristocracy of northern Italy and and the Mediterranean areas of France, because let's be honest, they had the weather for it. It's easy to train your horses when you have fucking year round good weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when you said yes to, is this the Tybalt from Shakespeare? Because, but only a little surprised because
Well, because
Romeo and Juliet goes all the way back to Pyramus and Thisbe, which is first century. So he could be in this in theory. So,
yeah,
but I didn't
well,
remember
no,
him being in
because
it. So I was
because yes, Romeo and Juliet does go back that far, but technically, if you're going by the allusions in Romeo and Juliet that they use for Tybalt, they are actually talking about this king in Dante. Funnily enough, and I know that one
okay.
from my Shakespearean class, because I was like, oh, I didn't realize they connected at all, because most of fucking Shakespeare
I
is
taught
so.
Romeo and Juliet, and I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I only knew this because of Miss Lawson. Thank you for fucking being a great goddamn British lit teacher. Um, um, but
I spent a lot of my time trying to explain away dick jokes at the that
yeah, I was about
run
to say
throughout
that
that
that was my experience with Shakespeare. It
because I
made
was
it
teaching
for
this to
me.
14-year-olds, and I
Well, and I was learning this as a kid, but for me it was, this felt weird because almost all of what we focus on in school of Shakespeare is his comedies. Even the sonnets, which are heartbreaking in a lot of respects, they're not
oh
focused
no,
on
they're
nearly as
yeah, they get
heavily.
funny. Yeah, yeah.
We focus on the funny ones more in school. I don't know if that's intentional or just a byproduct of culture. I don't really know, but so like when I learned that, I was like,
It
I
makes
didn't
them more
think.
approachable.
But I also didn't think that like somebody who was so comedic oriented would
Hmm.
pull from something so dark. And let's be honest, this is about as dark as you can get in the 1300s. You don't really get darker fictional like
I mean,
poems like this until
Shakespeare is also famously dark, like every chance he gets. Yeah, like
yeah, but I didn't learn that until after high school because yeah, they
sometimes
didn't.
he's both dark and funny.
Yeah, gallows humor is his bread and butter
Hmm.
for a lot of his plays. Um, I just knew that because of Miss Lawton, and that was my British lit teacher. I didn't take English lit because fuck English lit. I grew up in America. I didn't need English lit. I
You'd have
wanted
to buy
British
dinner
lit.
first.
Nah. Just take it to Grace Papaya. We'll be all right.
Hmm.
For those of you who didn't
I
get that,
love
sorry.
British lit myself.
Bad how I met your mother joke.
I love British lit myself, but uh, I do think that the Americans are overlooked, not just for Americans to read, but for people to read sort of worldwide.
Yeah, but I was
There are a
already
lot
a
of
heavy reader. I needed the British lit
yeah,
because I needed that crazy shit explained to me.
right,
And
yeah,
that's why I'm glad I had Miss Lawton for that class.
sure, yeah.
Because she was she. By the way, this is also my drama teacher. Which is why
Hmm.
I ended
Like
up
I
liking
said,
drama.
AP Lit and drama hand in hand. Like you should always, I always encourage my kids to do both. If they did one, they should do the other.
Yeah, except for you probably would have disliked Miss Lawton because she was one to let's say take the piss out of the bard. She didn't like him as much as most people did. She was much more James Joyce, Graham Greene fan. Like
Well, I love both of those
I
writers.
agree, but
And they're both heavy in my AP Lit class, so I would
yeah,
have
but you
loved
don't.
that.
Yeah, but you don't normally like people who shit on Shakespeare. You like
No,
to
I don't mind
defend
it at
him.
all. I might disagree with it, but I encourage debate in my classes for obvious reasons. I, I said that literature is debate, like literature and rhetoric, or
Despy, how long was Rich and I's
Elliot.
argument on the significance of the sonnets the other night? What was it, like 3 fucking hours?
I dozed off after the first hour and a half. So
Yeah, this is my
And
point.
Joe,
There are
you were
times you
defending
get
the sonnets over the
yeah,
plays,
yeah, I
which is
was
an
because
argument you would normally expect to come from me because I
well
love the sonnets.
because I'm talking about their influence on culture, and
Right.
emotive works tend to influence culture more than evocative works.
Yeah, I was on the other side of that one only because I think the sonnets are underrated
oh, they are
compared.
underrated literarily, but I think culturally, because of like how many philosophers, politicians, etc., it's influenced
Okay, that's
throughout
going to wipe
history.
out our next hour if we continue
Yeah,
down this.
I'm not getting into it. Just so that the
Yeah.
audience knew the argument. Like that's all it is. Is like we will argue over this and get into defending finite points about Shakespeare. So don't let him fool you. He is a Shakespeare defender, and he should be because Shakespeare is a great author and did change culture. But we need to focus on some other people.
he's a Shakespeare defender because Shakespeare can't defend
Yeah, but
himself.
I'm a Shakespeare defender, but that doesn't mean I don't like it when people attack Shakespeare. I like it when they attack Shakespeare because it gives me an opportunity to
Defend him.
talk about Shakespeare.
Well, yeah, I'm more joking with that last bit, but okay. These numbers don't line up, Rich. It's if you would like to pick up, it's the line that starts and Chiarto. Sorry, God damn it! I keep wanting to reverse these in my fucking head. This is what happens when you get electrocuted awake in the morning because your dog has chewed a hole in the fucking
Wait, the first word is Chiarto because I don't see it.
and, no and
And
Chiarto and then a comma.
Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, yeah.
And then it looks like you'll be
Uh,
reading down to. Let me make sure I don't need to go further.
oh, Chiriato.
Yeah, it looks like you will be. It looks like you'll be reading
It's
down
55.
to. Oh, okay. So I wasn't too far off. Because I didn't move these numbers this time because I was doing it quick this morning because of the way I woke up. And it looks like you'll be reading down to the end of the quoted speech of "For I should fear not."
And Chiarto, from whose mouth projected on either side a tusk, as in a boar, caused him to feel how one of them could rip. Oh, that sounds familiar. With my puppy. Among malicious cats, the mouse had come, but Barbaricia clasped him in his arms and said, "Stand ye aside while I enfork him." And to my master he turned around his head. "Ask him again," he said, "if more thou wish to know from him before someone destroy him." The guide. "Now tell then of the other culprits. Knowst thou any one who is elation under the pitch? And he, I separated lately from one who was a neighbor to it. Would that I were still covered up with him, for I should fear not either claw nor hook. And Libicoco, we have borne too much, and with his grapnel seized him by the arm, so that by rending he tore off a tendon. Eke Dragignazzo wished to pounce upon him down at the legs, wherein Decurion turned around and round with evil look. When they again somewhat were pacified of him, who was still looking at his wound, demanded my conductor without stay, "Who was the one from whom a luckless parting thou sayest thou hast made to come ashore?" And he replied, "It was the Friar Gomita, he of Galura, vessel of all fraud, who had the enemies of his lord in hand, and dealt so with them, each exalts threat." Is that the end, or do I keep
I
going?
mean, you went further than I was expecting because technically you're in the
Okay,
middle of a
okay.
speech, but we'll because we do have to cover a bit. Okay, so Friar
It didn't
Gamita.
seem like there was a natural pause anywhere. So.
Well, the natural pause was at hook and claw, or hook nor or claw nor hook rather,
Okay,
because that was the break in speech. But
you
it
can
was
just cut
better.
that out in that area.
No, it was just better that you read further, anyways, because we would have done a little bit of commentary diverted longer than we needed to, anyways. Because that area is just talking about the fact that the particular area of hell that he is in, um, he is a fear of being rended, which was alluded to at the end of the last canto. For those of you who don't understand rending, um,
It's what
go
happens
look
to
up
me every night.
go look up a YouTube video of rendering chicken for mechanically separated chicken. Now just imagine that to a living creature, and that's what is
Wait a minute. Wait a
happening to
minute. Is it rendering or rending? Those are two different things.
well, rending. Sorry, but it is the correct.
Rending. Yeah, rending is just being torn.
Yes, but
Like, yeah.
rending and then rendering for mechanically separated chicken. You technically do both in the process. For those of you who don't know why I'm pointing to mechanically separated chicken, for like all of your Slim Jims, all of your little beef snacks, all of the things you buy at the convenience store, yeah, that's mechanically separated chicken, guys. To go watch the process, you'll never eat that crap again.
Okay. I don't know.
I
I don't know
can.
how this. I don't know if this
I've
relates
physically
seen worse.
separated chicken.
Yeah, I was about to say you've
I've
seen
physically,
worse.
yeah, I've physically separated chicken. I can eat that shit, no problem.
I don't know if this is 100% the case with this particular poem, but when poets talk about rendering, I've noticed over the years, more often than not, they're talking about the process of taking animal fats and turning them into like candle wax.
Yes, rendering the
Yeah.
That's
fat.
the rendering that's typically discussed. Shakespeare's sonnets, for instance, does this.
Well, it's either that or they're rendering the oh god, I forget the name they used in Middle English, but the chemical liquids that they used for tanning was also called rendering
Yeah.
as you boiled that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes,
Mostly ammonia. It's mostly ammonia.
yeah, but they had a name for the concoction, and I just don't remember it right now. Because I haven't thought about tanning leather in fucking forever, and let alone tanning leather in the fucking 1500s. Like we have better methods
So I'm
now. We
bolding
don't
all
have
these
to pee.
names just because it helps me. It's just on the Musa column for anyone who's looking at the spreadsheet. But I'm bolding the names just so I can so we
Yeah,
can all talk about all the different characters that are being discussed here.
yeah,
It'll be
yeah,
easier to just
yeah.
assume the rest.
Good, Despy.
I
Like
was just
Libby
going to
got.
say that the tanning concoction is almost entirely made up of ammonia.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know how they got ammonia back then, don't look it up. You will.
Urine!
Yeah, never mind.
They got it from urine.
Yes, mainly horse urine. Because humans don't produce enough to do the volume they needed.
I thought it was cow and horse.
Yeah, but cows were luxury items for most people at this time. Remember,
Oh, wow.
you got most of your milk and for your butter and that from sheep and goats for most peasants.
Yeah.
But other than that, you're absolutely right. Yeah. It was their livestock, and most people had access to a horse for plowing, and horses pee a lot. And they're easier to get under
It's
than
like
sheep and goats.
that's why there's a term called piss like a racehorse.
Yeah. Now the reason now going back to Libya Coco, I forget who this person is, but I remember that Dante put him in hell at this point as a social commentary of aristocrats, because I do remember he's an aristocrat of some kind. I just don't remember why Dante put him in hell beyond that he was like, yeah, fuck the aristocrats who keep screwing everybody over. That part I don't remember. The one I looked into was and I'm not even gonna try and pronounce that because I'm gonna fuck it up again. The the Ekidragan Dragadinazo. That one is a play on words. It is both a nickname of a person that he was contemporary to, and a misspelling of a demon from a grimoire. And that I find interesting that he included, considering what this could have got him in if people had noticed it in the church. Just saying, this was a particularly interesting inclusion for him to do.
So since I mentioned all these names, I'd like to kind of go through some of them just
Good.
because it's a long list of names. And since we're doing the names, we might as well. There is a note on Tybalt
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll go back. Let me scroll
Sayers.
back up.
It's just really super quick. It's just the son-in-law of Louis the Ninth of France was the Count of Campagne, and later King of Navarre. It doesn't really say anything else about him, but I just thought I'd
Oh, okay.
mention that.
And I didn't remember that part of his genealogy, so that's good to know. I didn't remember he was related to the King of France. Um, Interesting.
And then yeah, and then there's not much more from
I just know that
Louis
that
Conrad.
Navarre was very very famous for their cavalrymen, and that lots of places in
Mhm.
France and Italy sent their people to learn from them. And I just know that from military. Like that's the kind of shit that Ty and I would end up talking about if we were talking about this point in history. Because
Right.
it's just military history. But that aside, what I do want to know is what is the note on Libya Coco? Because I remember there was one for that one.
Oh, hold on, let me look it up. Right after I put, there's also a note on "'Twas Cat and Mouse." Uh, so I'm just pasting that. Sayers thought that was interesting. The mouse had fallen prey to cats. This image, together with the references to frogs and to the games of Malebranche and Ciampolo, anticipates the reference to Aesop's fable that begins in 23. So a little bit of a roadmap there.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have connected all of that because I would have connected it more to like the particular circle of hell he's in, but it's interesting. I wonder if that's her interpretation or it was Dante's, because that'd be interesting to figure that out.
I don't know, but I also don't see a footnote for the person you asked for in
Libya
either.
Coco? Really? I thought Musa had one.
Libicock, yeah. I don't I don't see anything about Libicock. That's line 70?
I think
Yeah,
so,
there's
yeah.
no footnote for 70.
Okay, never mind. That I'm mistaking what I was scrolling through
We may have to
the
look him up because it is a name and I
yeah,
don't
and
have no
I, and
idea who it
I
is.
yeah, and I'll look it up over here on the other screen here in a second because I thought that had one, which is why I didn't look it up earlier. And and I just thought it was interesting that the next name, the one that I'm gonna fucking butcher every time I try to pronounce it, is a misspelling and a combination because of the fact that this was technically a nickname of a person. So I found that interesting. But let me grab.
Yeah, so from all I can tell, based on the Italian name, it's most likely to be a blend of Lebeccio and Sirocco, which are the southwest and southeast winds, respectively. So basically, he's just a wind demon.
Well, what kind of
Uh,
wind?
That's relevant.
Could be a fart joke.
Yep.
it's not a demon. I'm looking it up now on the Italian fucking Wikipedia, because thank God for fucking Google Translate whole pages in instance. It is a type of demon. It is a devil, but it is a type of troop of demons that is
Does this
invented
devil
by
break wind?
Dante. No, it was actually invented by Dante. So this is
Right.
actually a Danteism. This appears nowhere before Dante's writings. So if he didn't create it, whoever he stole it from fucking is lost to history. Interesting. Didn't know that part. Okay, and then the next name on your list would probably be Decurion, right, Rich?
Yeah, but I guess maybe I should just go to the ones that we have footnotes for, because
Oh
the other
yeah,
ones we'd have to
please.
go look up. I think.
Well, Decurion I can give you
So
was a Roman cavalry officer. I just knew that one.
the next one
It's a
on my
title, not
Musa
a
list
name.
is Gomita, and I think that's also
Friar Gomita, yeah.
yeah. Although a couple of small things like Elation is a native of Lower Italy, so the
That
nation rogues are just people from there.
okay. I didn't know it was Lower
Um,
Italy. I thought it was the plains of Italy. But that's just because of a different writing. I didn't realize it was just the southern portion of Italy. Interesting. Learned something new today.
And then that near neighboring isle that's in 67, that is Sardinia. I mean, that should have been obvious, but that's what it is.
Well, it's a
Um,
lot of people don't know that. Uh, for those of you who think
it's
of
the
the little,
soccer ball.
yeah, it's a soccer ball, but it's also Sardinia is not like any other place in Italy, and it's not like even the distinction between like mainland Italy and Sicily. It is an entirely different culture that is almost independent from Italy. Yeah, yeah, there's they speak Italian, etc., because of conquering and all that. But if you actually go to Sardinia, their culture is completely unique. It is fucking absolutely wild. And in Dante's time period, it was one of the primary hubs of fish oils for trade. It would have been one of the like largest producers of very particular fatty fish that were then used to make oils that were then used to preserve other shit.
Hmm.
So it would have been very important because of that. Now Friar Gomita is important. I forget the exact judge that he worked for, but he worked with a judge, and I want to say Sardinia, and then he was hanged after the viscount was like deposed. So Friar Gomita being hanged is a social commentary that Dante believes that it was a justified execution. I don't know his crimes. I just know that he was killed when the Viscount was deposed. Beyond that, that's all I got.
Yeah, there's a lot of notes on these. So also, it's interesting that Musa and Sayers both say Friar Gomita the Ineffable, as opposed to, and in fact, they even shorten Friar
To
in order to
FR.
fit, have enough syllables to say the Ineffable. And the Ineffable does not appear to be in the Italian. So that tells me that must be like a title that this character is like known to have historically or something. You
Wait,
know, like
sorry,
the Great or something. Is
where are
it?
you looking for the ineffable? Sorry, I don't know what line
It's
you're
in
looking.
81.
But it's not in the
Musa says
Italian.
the ineffable and Sayers says the ineffable, but it doesn't appear to be in the Italian unless
Yeah,
it's in a different line.
it's like calling Saint Francis the Gentle. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's historical. That part I didn't look up because I didn't realize it because I've been paying attention to Longfellow primarily. But well, Longfellow and Chiardi. I've been because you focus so much on Musa and Sayers. I've been trying to focus on the other scholars. um,
Well, yeah,
the
it because it's in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, no argument. Um, but I just know that that Dante putting him here would indicate that he believes that he had sinned. He was justified to be cast into hell. I just don't know what crimes he committed. Like I don't understand like I understand the social commentary of I am saying this was just and therefore you should view it as just. That's what he's trying to say here. But I don't know the crimes that the guy actually committed. And I'm googling it right now and all it is bribes, but that would put him in a previous circle. Why is he here? Simony is different. Like, like why would he be here?
Yeah, but also, uh, I don't know. I'm about to go through the notes, but I'll tell you this: like Musa gives like 2 pages on this footnote.
Oh, please
So
do.
apparently
Yeah.
he considers this to be a very important
Yeah,
character.
well, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at like his Wikipedia page. His original name is Nino Viconti, so on and so forth. But his actual crimes, as to what casts him outside of the circle for Simon, oh, goddamn hiccups. What casts him outside the circle for simony? I don't understand because according to the crimes I see listed on the Wikipedia page and on the Princeton Dante project, he's guilty of taking bribes to release prisoners, but that shouldn't put him in this circle. That should put him in the previous circle.
Well, I'm guessing Musa has an answer because
Yeah.
this is such a long entry. But let me first do Sayers because hers is much shorter, and it also the
She
footnote includes
usually
like other
is.
people. So Sardinia at that time belonged to Pisa. Gomita was judge of the province of Gallura under Nino Visconti of Pisa, who put up with his peculations until he found out that he had been bribed to let some prisoners escape, whereupon he had him hanged. So it's the simple thing.
Okay, so
But
yeah,
much
she's doing the
longer
stuff I
deep
see on
dive from
Wikipedia.
Musa. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So let's
that's
see.
backed up by the commentary from Robert Hollander, who was jovial prior appointed in 1294 to serve Nino Visconti of Pisa as his deputy. At first, Nino would hear no complaint against his corrupt appointee, but he eventually learned that he had allowed for a few certain prisoners to escape. At that point, he immediately had Fra Gomita hanged. So that's what it was. No idea what this ineffable bit is about.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping we get an answer in the footnote. Let's see. So I'm not going to read the part that we just read from everybody else. So I'll just skip to this part. From 1275 to 1296, Nito Visconti was judge of Gallura, one of the four districts with Sardinia. Blah blah blah. Profiting from his position and the good faith of Nino Visconti, who refused to listen to the complaints raised against him, Friar Gomita indulged in the sale of public offices. When Nino learned, however, that he had accepted bribes to let prisoners escape, that's when he had him hanged. The second lie of cantos 21 to 22 is Ciampolo's. Okay, he's listing the lies that are in the following lines, so he's moving on to the next person at that point. So it's not that long. It's each paragraph is a different person.
Okay.
So the next one is Ciampolo.
So if we had continued reading from 81, we would have seen Dante explaining all of his crimes.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah, but no, but
he of Glora vessel. Yeah.
Yeah, no. But what I'm getting at is it doesn't explain why he's not in the previous circle where anybody else would be for this crime. But that's what I mean. It's a juxtaposition to put him here. Why? Why is the? Why
I forget
is he
what
deeper?
circle we're in.
It has.
Circle we're in and what
we don't know the exact crime.
Also, there's an enjambment. So line 81 doesn't have any punctuation after it. So I should have checked for that. I don't know. I always check for enjambments, and I didn't do that this time. But so it's not Gomita the Ineffable. It's Gomita the Ineffable Scamp of Gallura. So it's probably just on the next line in the Italian. So it probably wasn't added.
No, because
curiosity.
Because when you look at the next line, it's he of Gallura, vessel of all fraud, and Longfellow. That kind of means the same thing, but it's definitely not the alliterative that I'm seeing when I'm comparing it to the Italian.
Yeah.
Rich, I'm looking at the Musa and Sayers, and for several tercets, they are word for word identical. Are you sure you didn't copy one from the wrong source? Because that never happens.
Scamp of corruption is very sync, said he. Yeah, you're right. I'll have to look and see which one I did that.
I was going to say, they are precisely the same. Like, I'm going up several tercets. In fact, I go up to the very top. Yeah,
it was probably one.
I think you copied Musa into the Sayers column as well.
Was it? When does this start? Oh, yeah, okay. That's probably why. I'll go back and change it.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Rich, I think I remember you were doing this. Yeah, Rich, I think you were doing this one night, like it was super late at night when we were bullshitting at like 2 or 3
it might have been. No, I think I was doing it just now. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing it this morning because I was watching the spreadsheet be filled in, and like this going. So he's been doing it this morning. I honestly think he just
I did do 2 separate ones, but I bet what happened was the very last one, I ended up pasting the whole column instead of the last tranche, and it overwrote. I'm sure that's what it was. Okay.
fair enough.
I don't know which one it was. I hope it was Sayers, but we'll see. Okay, well that explains that. But the footnotes are different, so I'm not going to change it until we're done because
Yeah.
I don't want to eliminate the footnotes.
Now, Don Michael Zanchi. What was that noise, puppy girl? Well, is it still
It was the
pouring
sound
down?
of another power cable getting chewed on.
It's pouring down rain, baby. Okay, never mind. Just want out. Now I gotta go.
I'm gonna go bark at the thunder.
Let me go grab a towel so that when she comes in, I don't have a puddle. But go ahead and go on with Don Michael Zanchi because I know because Longfellow has a note. I'll get to that one in a minute.
Which name?
Okay.
Wait.
Don Michael what is Zanchi?
Sorry, what line are we at?
Look on here. It looks like it's 92, but I don't know if it's numbered correctly.
Who's
War
reading?
gatherers.
No, it's not
Is somebody
numbered
reading?
correctly. It was just the name we were going to go over next. It's the next name on the list.
Oh, okay.
Michael
I
Zanchi,
got
is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let me go based on what the footnotes there. Okay,
Zanchi.
Michael Zanchi, according to Sayers, vicar of Logodoro under Enzo, king of Sardinia, who was a natural son of Frederick II. I guess everyone's from Sardinia at this point. About 1290, he was murdered by his son-in-law, Brancadoria, whom we shall hear of in Canto 23. So a lot of stuff's coming up in 23 that's being alluded to in 22.
Yeah,
It
it is also the reason I know of this is he was also a member of a plot to assassinate another judge of a different area called Sassari. And he when he was killed, he was the reason I remember this so heavily is he was succeeded by his sister. Because, and this is why I pointed out that Sardinia is so different from Italy, it was not uncommon for there to be like an open matriarch of a family in Sardinia, like at this time period, which was really rare in Italy at this time. But that note comes from the Longfellow because he also points out that he was succeeded by his sister Adelesia, and she goes on to marry Ubaldo Vacante, Nino Vacante's cousin, essentially. So the person who kills the friar is tangentially married to the person that Zanche wanted to kill. Interesting, just for future reference. Despy's just like, I got nothing. I got nothing, and I want to yell at the screen, but there's nothing to say. I can tell that when you start your swinging.
Words!
I can tell that when you start doing this, because you're like, this is so deep in the weeds. But at least these weeds are like actually in the text.
If these weeds are any deeper, I'd be looking for Pokemon.
Oh, I want to take your hit card because you didn't say I would need a weedless jig on my fucking fishing pole, but need to hook it up Carolina style.
They don't have Pokemon.
I mean, Pokemon seem to be caught by fishing poles too, and we all know if you let Magikarp do his thing long enough, you eventually get a fucking dragon. So I mean, I'll stick with the fishing pole.
That's a Gyarados.
which is a dragon type.
But
I
it's
said
called a
a.
Gyarados.
I said a dragon, not that its name wasn't Gyarados. And if you get one that's really pissed off, it comes out red.
Yeah, that is true, actually.
And everybody in the chat just went, Jesus Christ, what fucking nerds.
Talking about shiny Pokemon while reading Dante.
I mean, there's worse ways to spend your
To
Saturday
be fair,
morning hungover.
we were in the
guys.
weeds.
This is true, but as I was saying, like there are absolutely worse ways to spend your hungover morning, learning about Dante and fucking like having to be in the weeds about silly shit when people aren't screaming at each other. Because I know y'all went out drinking last night. If you're here and you're actually a university student watching while we're live. So I know you can't be feeling great right now. I mean, we were all 20 at one point, but at the same time, like, the recovery rate still sucked. The first few hours sucked ass. And let's be honest, if you're on the West Coast, you're probably still awake from the night before. You haven't even had time to sleep it off yet. But we left off. Oh yeah, you left off at it. I actually had jumped forward. We didn't need to do Zanchi yet because you had left off at Exalted Threats. That's my bad.
Yeah, but your tangent gave me time to replace the missing column.
But Ancom, if you would like to pick up from Money He Took. Oh wait, no, you did read that. God damn it. Sorry, four gathers and with him. I skipped one Terset, not two.
Yep, no worries. And yeah, now that you've put the correct Musa translation is, it looks like only Sayers calls them ineffable. All right.
Okay, I was about to say, if they both did it, there's something to this.
Yeah, no,
that's why I stopped it all
Sayers.
about that, because otherwise I would have just been, yeah, it's like what we call Francis the Gentle. Like, who fucking cares? Means nothing.
Yeah, right. Sayers, especially given that it's Sayers, like, makes sense. What line was that again? 55? No.
I think so.
81 was the ineffable.
Oh. Yeah.
But I'm starting on 88.
Galura is what Musa says. Yeah, so that's more like Longfellow.
And it looks like you're gonna go, because I know you're reading on the spreadsheet, to, let's see if that's 88. Like 90 something, like 95, I think, which is to do whenever. Like the finish of the actual spoken sentence quotation before cognazo. Zoomed in.
Okay. It's not very long, but okay.
Oh, well, because
105.
Oh, 105, okay. Not 95. Sorry, I miscounted.
Yeah, I'm like 95. That's not very far.
I got an hour of sleep and electrocuted awake by a fucking shorting heating pad. Give me a break.
All right.
By the way, I don't recommend being electrocuted awake. It's not fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine it would be. For gathers with him one Don Michael Zanchi of Lugadoro and of Sardinia, to gossip never do their tongues feel tired. O me, see that one, how he grinds his teeth. Still farther would I speak, but am afraid, lest he scratch my itch be making ready. And the Grand Provost turned to Farfello, who rolled his eyes about as if to strike, said, Stand aside thou malicious bird. If you desire either to see or hear the terror-stricken recommenced thereon, Tuscans or Lombards, I will make them come. But let the Malabranca cease a little, so that these may not their revenges fear, and I, down sitting in this very place, For one that I am will make 7 come, when I shall whistle as our custom is to do whatever one of us comes out.
Okay.
To do when.
Yeah, okay. So the reason I had you stop here, first of all, I wanted you to read that section because you wouldn't butcher it the way the rest of us probably would have. Second of all, because this is an allusion to like Italian folklore, like outside of the Catholic Church, which I find interesting. Because of like the whole thing of the 7 come when I whistle, etc. This is an allusion to an ancient brigand band of northern Italy that were basically the equivalent of Robin Hood, except for they didn't give money. They gave out justice by like fucking like scarring up nobles and shit. So when I read this section, I found that kind of funny because I went and looked it up, and it is connected. It is an allusion to that, which is interesting.
Kind of reminds me of Seven in One Blow.
I don't know if there's numerology involved in it. I mean, Dante's not exactly unknown for doing it, so it could be. I just know that this folklore has these 7 brigands who did this because of the number of scars they would put on the people that they attacked. Because they didn't kill people, they just scar up fucking noblemen, which is kind of funny. Might be a fitting rhyme in history for modern times, one might think. It's about as far as I can go with that illusion without getting the channel struck immediately. But the other thing is this: the Grand Provost returned to Farfalla. It is a at least in my eyes, the way that this is being alluded to, this is now we've went out of the surreal. We're now being juxtaposed back into the semblance of normal. This is like the hierarchy of humanity being cast into hell in a way that the hierarchy persists. Ugh. Hold on. Come on, puppy. She's still going nuts out there. I'm gonna have to go get her in a minute. Oh, I'm gonna end up having to paint that door dark so when I open it, it doesn't fucking flashbang the camera like that. um, but he's trying to juxtapose us back into like the semblance of normalcy, the basic like hierarchy of like of like addressing people, of like the way the interactions would happen in a natural space, but in hell, the same way he eventually does in Paradiso, where occasionally he will juxtapose the real into the surreal. At least in my opinion, Dante's doing this to make the reader uncomfortable, because he does this every time he does a social commentary of a particular person in hell. And I have the sneaking suspicion him saying that Father Gomita being in hell is the one that he's doing here, because he, again, just cast a clergyman into the deeper sections of hell. He needs to add some kind of normalcy to bring the reader back to like not freaking the fuck out at what they're reading. At least that's my opinion. There's a couple of commentators who think the same, because they also reference that this canto is slightly out of character for the rest of the Inferno, how it's very fluffy in certain sections, and I have to actually take my headset off this time to go get the dog because it's fucking pouring and my headset gets soaked. Be right back.
No problem.
Yeah, I mean that could be. I just think that I don't know. There's so much criticism of the church in this piece that I don't know. I don't necessarily know that one more is going to do much in terms of being scandalous.
Yeah.
All right, I'm starting to put the footnotes back in for Musa. the biggest one is he just does one big footnote for 97 through 132. I kind of feel like he got tired that day. He's just lumping it all into one footnote.
Yeah, don't everybody talk at once while I'm gone.
Oh, okay. So I think I've finally figured out what so at least according to some commentaries and Wikipedia shit I found. So we are currently in the fifth ditch of the eighth circle, which is confusing. So looks like Champolo is the name of this the name of what Longfellow translates, actually what Dante calls the Grand Provost, and the basically the devils here are pulling people out of boiling pitch where grafters are immersed, which represents their sticky fingers and corrupt deals, at least according to this one commentary I'm reading. So basically this is for people who not just were thieves, but who specifically tricked people into taking their money.
Okay, that makes even less sense why Gomita is here then, because he was taking money to free people from fucking hanging and shit. So
Yeah, but well, that's what he was finally caught for doing, but like he was extremely corrupt based on the shit. So like he probably could have could have been involved in all sorts of, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Embezzlement, that's the word. Which is kind of where I would like this, if we're going off the metaphorical sticky fingers, right? Then embezzlement very much makes sense. And it sounds like he was finally caught for basically taking bribes, but I'm guessing he was guilty of many other forms of sneaky thievery.
Oh, hey, when I deleted all my lines, it didn't delete the notes. So there's still
Yes, because the notes are attached to the cell separately from the content of the cell.
so I didn't have to do all that over again. That's good.
No, you did not. So yeah, at least that's what, because I was very confused by, like, it says, and the Grand Provost turned to Farfarello. I'm like, who the fuck is the Grand Provost? What? And so I had to look that up. I was like, I'm very
well,
confused.
no, that's good to know. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the Grand
Put it in the
Provost here
notes.
is
As long as you have it in front of you, just
Giampolo.
put it in the notes. That's column G.
Oh yeah, notes.
Any notes that are not Musa or Sayers, I just put it in that column G. You can even make it a hyperlink if you want. Make it easy.
okay, so like as we've gotten through that, like honestly, like this part is honestly less interesting to read. I don't get any lamentations in this entire canto. It's fucking bullshit. Cognazzo, at these words, his muzzle lifted, shaking his head, and said, "Just hear the trick which he has thought of, down to throw himself, whence he who snares in great abundance had responded, I by far too cunning am, when I procure for mine a greater sadness. Alichin held not in, but running counter unto the rest, and said to him, If thou dive, I will not follow thee upon the gallop, but I will beat my wings above the pitch, the height be left, and be the bank a shield, to see if thou alone dost countervail us. O thou who readest, thou shalt hear a new sport. Each of the other side, his eyes averted. He first who most reluctant was to do it. The Neverese. See, I got it right. It was Neverese. I knew I remembered it for a fucking reason. Not never agains.
Never again.
Planted his feet on the land, and in the moment leaped and released himself by their design, whereat each one was suddenly stung with shame, but he most who was cause of the defeat, therefore he moved and cried, they're overtaken. Oh, wait, no, I'm saying that wrong. Okay, I'm gonna fuck that, because it's
Thou
supposed to be
art
overtaken. Yeah,
or
What
but
line is
taken.
it?
no, but it's not overtaken. It's or Turkin
A kern?
or Turkurd. Yeah, my tongue does
What
not
line
want
is
to.
it?
Again, these aren't numbered right. It's gonna be probably like 130 or 120 ish. Therefore, he moved and cried, "There are overtaken, overtucker." See, that's the thing. I want to put the R before the K, but the R is before the end at the end. Or I want to put the R before the A because to couple with the T. That is just so fucking weird to do it that way.
I don't. Oh, therefore he moved and cried, "Thou art overtaken." Maybe that's probably a character recognition error. Let me look.
No, this is no, because I'm direct copying these from Longfellow's published works. Like I am literally opening up a copy of Longfellow's published works in PDF form and screenshotting these. This is not rendered.
Oh, maybe that's just how they said it back then. Then I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but my tongue doesn't want to wrap around it.
Overtaken.
Yeah, it's just like, but it's like
Well,
trying
hold on.
to
Say ode to a Grecian urn.
to a Grecian urn.
See, you said it fine. You said the urn part fine.
Yeah, but it's not that. It's because the way your tongue is forming from the roll to a flat, back to a roll and quick success. Like your tongue doesn't want to do this. At least mine doesn't. And Despy's like, that's not the name of those things. Yes, I know that there's specific names for the positions of the tongue. I don't fucking remember all of them.
It's an art. ChatGPT thinks it's a contraction, which of course it is a contraction. That explains the apostrophe. Plus an archaic past participle.
Like I said, it may be archaic, but my tongue doesn't want to fucking say it.
Or a participle. Overtake.
And honestly, there's not really a whole much to add onto this one. Because of the way this is, like we only have the one name Cognazzo. And honestly, like we can like anticipate what Cognazzo is based on the context that this is some kind of a mount, probably some kind of a demon like horse. That's
I want to correct your pronunciation on Cagnazzo, but I know it won't do anything.
No, because of the simple fact that I would have to get back into my habit of when I learned my Latin of going through in my agricolarum and agricola and I did doing all that shit again to get my tongue back in shape to do this correctly.
Oh, never mind. It doesn't. It says there's no good explanation for it, and it's suggesting a typo. It could be that the original publisher had a typo in it.
I mean, okay, maybe, but that'd be really weird for it not to be corrected after this long. Oh, I'm really glad I just got my puppy.
It also suggests that there might be, because in Middle English there were inconsistent rules for words or whatever. So if he knows of some older sort of Middle English text, that that puts an R there, because it was before standardization, then he was hearkening back to.
Or
I can see
because,
Longfellow
well,
doing that.
the other thing is it could be regional. Despy can point to this within the Japanese, like it probably wouldn't have entered the characters as much, but pronunciation wise, oh yeah. And this is supposed to be like an alliteration of spoken word, which would be trying to take that into account. There's going to be words that certain parts in Japan say totally different than other parts of Japan's, even though it's the same fucking word.
Yep.
So he was from Portland, Maine. I'm not aware of that kind of non-standardization because
I'm going to be honest
the
with
en,
you.
like
If you've ever been to
aspirable
New
en, is
England, they
like a
speak fucking weird.
super common thing. So like there would be a lot of words that would end in ERN if that was a regional thing, right?
Well, no, but
No.
no, but you're thinking
They speak wicked weird. Okay,
That's
make sure you're
yeah,
using the
but Rich,
correct terminology.
you're talking
Mhm.
about in the characters of the words as they would appear if they were writing. That's not what I'm saying this is. Because this is spoken word, Dante is trying to, and Longfellow was trying to elicit how it would be pronounced in the spelling as opposed to just the spelling. Is what I'm meaning by that regional. We do this when we start writing, for example, the way that a fucking Canadian says sorry, we'll add the OU jokingly to so that you know you're supposed to say sorry as opposed to the way Americans say it. You know, they're like it's the same kind of thing. It's alliteration for the
Just
speech
give
as
you a
opposed.
washcloth.
Yeah, if I was going for fucking Minnesota.
No, that's not Minnesota. That's Oklahoma.
I heard that
Minnesota doesn't use
Minnesota's.
wash.
I could have heard
I don't
that.
know where you must have heard it from somebody that moved from Oklahoma to Minnesota because
I'm not
Minnesotans don't
arguing
say
with you.
that.
I'm not arguing with you. I've only driven through Minnesota twice, so it's not like I have a great amount of experience. Most of my experience with Minnesota comes in the form of listening to people on the radio who were from there. Don't you know? Like, that crap. Let's be
Mm-hmm.
honest. That's the most experience I have with it. Because driving
Mm-hmm.
through on a motorcycle at 80 miles an hour, you get through east to west on Minnesota in about 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, for any of you who are watching this outside of the United States, we're fucking massive. It's fucking ridiculous. That's one state, and it's got like 3 million people total. But
So, because of the fact that New England at this time would have had a fairly similar accent to England, my guess here is he is choosing to orthograph what is known as intrusive R in some non-rhotic dialects. So where you end up hearing an R sound between two vowels. In this case, it's not between two vowels, but I could see if you were doing it in a slight British accent, thou art overtaken, right? You might be able to hear an R in there, where there isn't one, just because you're expecting that. Sometimes you'll expect an R there, due to the fact that it's non-rhotic, and so they don't usually pronounce them, and so maybe he's choosing for some reason to insert that.
well, but the
Okay,
thing
That's
is,
my
so
when I'm talking about New England, when we talk about Maine, when we talk about uh, Maine talks different than New Hampshire, than Vermont, and it's been that
Yep.
way for a very long time. So we can't even talk
Yep.
about New England as a cohesive whole. And that's why I'm saying, like, this could be regional. This could have been something he heard down at the pub from fucking people that are just in his town. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
it could have been, but you would expect that if that were the case, he would use it, he would do it more than once. And I asked ChatGPT if he'd ever used it in any other context, in any other work, or in the rest of this work. And I don't just mean the word or takern, but did
Any
he
of the
ever change
RNs.
en past participle to ERN? And ChatGPT says no, he never did. which is why they think one of the possibilities that's reasonable is that it was a misspelling on his part or a typo from the publisher. But that's not the only possible explanation. It could be that he was trying to evoke
We're making
what he
Despy's head
perceived to
hurt.
be an ancient
I'm just
usage.
getting tired. I'm
Yeah.
seriously, I'm just getting tired.
Yeah, is it
Oh, yeah,
late
but it was
over there?
funnier to blame us. Just blame us. It works better. No, but that's what I'm saying. I didn't think that it was going to be common, and that's why I thought it was just kind of a way of him to delineate like a spoken
Yeah,
word.
it's either a mistake or an invention. But if it's an invention, it was a unique one because he never did it again.
Yeah, and well, according to GPT, we both know how accurate that thing can be at times.
Yeah, no, understood. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll take that with a grain of salt without digging
I can do
deeper
a Google
digging.
Ngram search for the word and see if it shows up.
Oh yeah, no, that would actually be better because if it appears more than fucking in just Dante, we're gonna see a spike at some point somewhere.
Yeah.
Because that only goes back to the 1800s, so it's not going to be
zero instances found.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm more inclined to believe typo.
Keep in mind, it reports as a percentage, right? So you would need to have more than one instance, I think, to have a percentage that's worth reporting.
No, even one instance would appear, and I know this because I've looked up things that I know only appear once in all the books, the etc. It will just show up as an incredibly small percentage, 0.0000000.
How do you know that it's only been used once?
Because I looked up something that is historically known as an invention in this one book and that nobody else used because it's not a very well known. I was testing it on Ngram just to see how accurate it was, because this was back when you first told me about it. The word is an invention out of a sci-fi novel. I forget what it is because I had to go look it up. And it does not appear in any other published work anywhere for 30 years after it's published in this one book, because it was basically, this book was published, there was like 500 copies published, and it basically just nobody noticed it for 30 years.
Oh, I see. So you did searches for every year after that date and every year before that date.
Yeah.
And those showed zero.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like there are ways that it's wild. It's wild how you can track words. That thing is so fucking accurate. Like, and if it's a single case, the percentage number, the number just adds enough zeros until it can add something at the end to be like a meaningful integer. It's fucking wild. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about the Google Ngram Viewer. This is a way to track words, phrases, whole paragraphs in published work. So, for example, for example, if you're trying to, we'll go to, since we're talking about Dante, if you're doing like a theological study, and you're wanting to see how many times a particular passage of Josephus is quoted, you could actually put in the whole section of the work, and it will show you how often and how many, like in a graph pattern, how often it's cited. Margin for error is going to be very heavily on the visual aid, but if you look at the percentage number, it's highly accurate. You can track all of this. Now, it doesn't tell you exactly what books they're in, but you can tell how often somebody uses it. For example, and this is one I used in something I'm working on as a side project. There's a particular thing in evangelical Christianity about calling evolution a farce. I went and looked up like the history of it. That particular phrase, evolution is a farce, is wholly invented in a very particular time period and almost exclusively appears in the writings of one fucking person. Almost exclusively for like 50 years. Just interesting when you get into these things. But Despy, before you fall out on us, if you would like to pick up the reading.
Where am I at?
On the top of the screen. I already moved it. And it looks like...
Okay, and where am I going?
You're going to be finishing it out, so let me zoom out a little bit
Okay.
so you can see it all. And move it.
But little it availed, for wings could not outstrip the fear. The other one went under, and flying upward, he his breast directed. Not otherwise the duck upon the sudden dives under, when the falcon is approaching. And upward he returneth cross and wary. Infuriate at the mockery, Calcabrina, flying behind him, followed close. Desirius?
I mean, desirous is
Desire?
how I would say it,
Desirous. Desirous.
but I'm sure there's multiple ways to pronounce it because it's a weird spelling.
The other should escape to have a quarrel. And when the barrator had disappeared, he turned his talons upon his companion and grappled with him right above the moat. But sooth the other was a doughty sparhawk to clapper claw him well, and both of them fell in the middle of the boiling pond. And a sudden intercessor was was the heat, but nevertheless of rising there was not. To such degree they had their wings belimed, lamenting with the others. Berbericia made 4 of them fly to the other side, with all their gaffs, and very speedily. This side, and that they to their post descended, they stretched their hooks upward, the pitch ensnared, who were already baked within the crust. And in this manner busied did we leave them.
Okay, so 2 things. One, I love that you stumbled over Sparhawk, but you went through Clapperclaw instantly. It was just hilarious. Like I figured Clapperclaw would get you, not Sparhawk. Sparhawks live in Kansas, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Well, a breed of Sparhawk.
Okay, so I deep dove a little bit more into Takern. So apparently, Takern is actually an archaic, uncommon spelling of the word taken, and I was able to find multiple instances of it on Google Books, looking at books from the early 1800s, like literally 1800, 1801. So like we have examples like someone is taken as equal, or taken the oaths in this parliament. So there were instances where taken was
it would just be
R.
Longfellow would be unique with the overtaker as opposed to just takern.
Yes, well, I mean, overtaken being a compound word of over and taken, It makes sense. It's just that particular usage, yes, is unique.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. Because at the same time, see, and I could say overtaker, but if I have to try and remove the V, my tongue doesn't reset to the correct position, and it doesn't want me to pronounce the word correctly. It's bad. I would have been a lousy sailor, just saying. Like, I would have called it the forecastle rather than the forecastle. Like, it'd have been bad. What's up, Despy?
Not much.
Oh, you just started staring down like I thought you were reading something.
No, I'm good. I'm just tired.
God, if we had started an hour later, you'd have fucking died.
Yeah. I think I had to get up early, take the kids and whatnot, and it's playing. I'm getting the toll is taking its toll on me. Whatnot.
I can tell by the structure of that sentence. The theater kid doesn't normally sound like that.
Nope.
Honestly, somehow I this is the first time I'm hearing the fact that you were a theater kid.
Me?
Yeah.
I majored in theater as well as Asian language and literature.
Yeah, see, this is news to me, so I don't know how it is. This is the first time I'm hearing this, but there you
How
go.
did you not get it from the amount of show tunes he'll go into?
Right.
Oh, I mean, someone can be, or someone can enjoy show tunes and theater without having been a theater kid. I myself am such an
Yeah,
example.
you would be one of the rare examples of it. Almost everybody I know who's going to randomly break out into singing improvised show tunes was a theater kid.
I
Or
mean,
a
to be fair,
singer.
I married a theater kid, so I think I just got a lot of that through osmosis.
Well, that,
Yeah.
and you also strike me as somebody who would have done this anyways. Just to be fair.
Fair.
Probably why you were attracted to the theater kid.
Among other reasons, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, among other reasons, nobody's single faceted. It's just funnier to put it that way. Ugh.
Fair.
Like, my wife is probably one of the few people on the planet who's smarter than me that, like, I actively deal with on a regular basis. Um, who does, like, a very different, like, thought process. And when I mean smarter than me, like, she is able to pick up even shit that she has, like, very little foundational knowledge in very, very quickly. Like, able to,
Fair
like,
enough.
pick apart quantum physics when she hasn't touched a physics class since high school in the 80s. You know?
Fair.
So, it's just interesting. But, like, it's weird when you deal with people like that, because she doesn't speak like us. She thinks we're fucking absolutely insane for thinking like this. Like getting this, like, nuanced into education, like, this is hell to her. The concept of
I'm
sitting,
glad she thinks that. I know it. I know
but
you're insane.
well, no, but the thing is, if I were to do this exact same prospect with the lines of a Gershwin, musical, or a fucking
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton, they would make all
Yeah.
of us look like absolute fucking, like, my daughter and my wife would make us look like absolute nobodies when it comes to this shit. They would know every little fucking detail, etc. They would sing half the fucking lines instead of just read them.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
To be
yeah,
fair, so would I. If it were something like Hamilton, yeah.
yeah, but, like, one of the ones my daughter was in, like, one of the last performances she was in when she was still doing, like, the stuff in college, she was in Oliver. Yeah, so, like, yeah, just for those of you who don't know that one, yeah, that's where we get food, glorious food. Yeah, if you've ever heard that song in, like, all of, like, modern media, because it's been redone fucking bajillion times and homaged in everything from Family Guy to South Park to fucking, hell, even Rick and Morty did a small section in Interdimensional Cable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like, these are very influential plays, but most people have never seen that play. But yeah, both my wife and my daughter are fucking absolute fucking show tune nerds and fucking musical theater kids.
Most people have never seen a play.
No, that
No, most people
particular
have never
play.
seen the musical Oliver.
Yeah, that particular
I was
play,
gonna say.
because first of all, it is a hyper select group of people that go to theater in the first place, and it is even more of a refined, like, subgroup that do musical theater. Like, and most musical theater kids don't do classical musical theater, they do modern musical theater.
Yeah,
Like,
I
and
have the
Despy
thing
can
where
back me up on this. Like, the older
if
the
somebody
musical,
invites
the
me to a
less it's
musical,
done.
my
Yeah.
instinct is to say no, and then when I finally do go, like, I love it.
Oh yeah,
It's one of
Jack,
those things.
yeah,
Jack, your
I
camera
see.
went off again.
I don't know what the fuck is going on with this thing now.
Okay, I was about to get mad because the puppy just had an accent, but It was on it was on that glass floor thing that I have for my office chair. I was like, okay, if you're gonna
Oh,
go on that.
yeah, it's an easy place to clean. So.
Just don't go on the carpet, please.
Hate when this shit happens.
It's funny that we call that an accident because they're very intentionally, going. It's just they don't realize that that's not where they're supposed to go.
Well, listen, I can't complain
Weird.
really because so far the only times she's ever done that is if I didn't take her for a walk in a reasonable amount of time.
Well, but I
So
mean,
it's been my fault every single time.
well, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
Even when it's not, the other thing is like it's part of having an animal. Like people like really need to
Yeah.
like your animals like it's pouring right now.
Well, I'm just saying,
If my
like,
dog
at
didn't
some
want to
point you
go
need to
out,
correct it. You gently correct it, but you still have to correct it, right? But if they
I
haven't been
mean,
walked in hours, then even correcting makes no sense to me. Like even
well,
just
yeah, but
saying,
it's
you
also
know,
to it's also like it's certain like circumstances. Like for example, it's pouring right now. My dog wanted to go out this time, but if she hadn't, I have like pee pads down in the hallway for her to use right now because of this because like my
Mhm.
backyard is a fucking pond right
No,
now.
I have them too. I have
Yeah.
them too. And you know what? She will go on them.
No,
But if she's in my room, she doesn't see them, you know? So I should put one out in my room specifically, but usually my
no,
strategy is to keep her
I,
out in
I,
carpeted
I,
areas.
yeah, I would keep the pee pads in the same spot because then it will become
Yeah,
habit to go there to look for one.
that's what we've been doing. But she
Yep.
she doesn't go looking for them. But if she is within sight of it, she'll use it.
Well, but it's also she will start going to look for it when she gets in trouble when she doesn't use one, and not in trouble when she
Mhm.
does use one. So like it will become habit. Like honestly, like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you gotta hit them. No, like you can fucking ooh the dog and it will work half the time. Like ooh, like you treat him like a fucking 2-year-old. Like it works. You don't have to do much. Usually, just the change in the tone of your voice is enough for them to realize they fucked up. Now, going back to this one, Despy, you should feel glad. I considered it. I almost read all the way to the end because you see the word that I fucking let you have.
The
No,
lamenting. That's right. You said that there wasn't anything in this canto.
no, I said till the end. I just didn't break it up in the right way, so I got the last canto or last stir sets. Yeah, natural breakpoints didn't let me work that way. But now
All right,
going
I'll be right
back,
back. I guess we should.
yep. But going back to this, the way this is describing this, it's almost like a dogfight of birds in the air, and the reason that this
Mm-hmm.
matters is because this area of Italy, there are ducks, fucking everywhere. Like certain time of year, you can't go anywhere near water and not find a goddamn duck. Like they blot out the sun at certain times when they come off the
So what
ponds.
you're saying is there are both ducks fucking everywhere, and
And
there are ducks fucking everywhere.
yes, and by proxy, there is also a lot of fucking predatory birds everywhere to eat the big fat fucking ducks. And they're little skinny ducklings. And the reason this matters is
Those delectable little morsels.
if you ever lived in a region like this, and there's plenty of regions in America that you can find that have this, um, you will know this pattern, and it's the falcon diving, and the bird instead of just trying to evade left or right, it will actually start to dive with the bird and turn away from it. So it ends up looking like a dance, like a weaving dance. And the reason they describe this kind of like interweaving like flight pattern is because this is the way con men work in a linguistic sense. And Despi could, again, as our resident linguist, can back this up. There are certain ways of
Mm-hmm.
talking, certain like rhyming certain words to other words, using certain color phraseology within our particular like word choices that will make people trust us more. And with the way that barratry is being used in this as a form of like trickery and deceit, it is trying to say that this is done very subtly, but the second it goes wrong, it's violent. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
you don't realize you're fucked until you're fucked.
Yep.
And I'll point this to you. There's plenty of movies that have done like done this, but there is an episode of a TV show that is like broke this down as an explainer because it's a con man working with the FBI and like trying to teach the FBI guy how this stuff works. It's called White Collar. There's an episode where they are trying to con a diamond dealer with fake diamonds and stuff like that, and they mix in some real diamonds, and he uses these tricks that I'm talking about, these neuro-linguistic programming tricks within his language to guide the person to think that they're making the choice that he wants them to make, but thinking it's their own, picking one diamond over the other like a blue diamond by bringing things up like
Yeah.
words that rhyme with blue.
It's just pushing it like you get with mentalism and magic tricks.
Yes, and that is what he's describing this barratry as, is this type of pushing, and all of a sudden you walk away and you think you have everything and all you have is a handful of glass and they have all your money. Like that's what he's getting at here. So he's trying to say that this is like ruinous to the people that are the victims of it, and that's why he puts it so low in hell. I can't say
Yeah.
I disagree with him. I just think I disagree with Friar Gomita because I'm looking at him. And yeah, he was corrupt, but did you look at what he was corrupt with, Ancom? Letting
I
non-believers
didn't.
go, letting heretics go
Oh,
free.
fair.
He may have been a corrupt dickhead, but it also seems like he was trying to like just not kill people. That's not a
Yeah, I
horrible
mean,
reason to be a bribing, a corrupt dickhead.
yeah, I don't disagree, but like from Dante's perspective, this makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, especially as a true believer. Fuck, dude, this is heresy.
Yeah.
But just to point that out, like I'm looking at his crimes, like yeah, he accepted bribes, yeah, he did some political influence shit which he wasn't supposed to do, but almost all of it was in pursuit of let's not kill as many people as we're killing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was because he just didn't want to kill people, like as in he didn't have the stomach for it himself. And obviously, as the like leading friar of the area, he'd have to be present for all this shit, even though he wouldn't have to swing the axe. Or if he actually legitimately wanted to like save people, I don't fucking know. But like, I may have put him a little higher in hell. He maybe back up in the city of Dis or somewhere up there. You know, give him a little less shitty of a afterlife. Personally, I think Dante may have
Yeah,
overjudged him here. I figured Rich would be back by now.
totally fair.
By the way, Despy, your right eye is getting a little bit red in the inside corner. I'm guessing it's because you've
Yep.
been rubbing it. So get some eye
Yeah.
drops in that shit before you go to sleep because it's getting like red, enough to where I'm
Yeah.
noticing it on the camera. I just noticed that and I'm like, shit, dude, I'm the one smoking. My eyes should look like that, not yours. uh, Now that being said,
It's really dry in this room.
yeah, I mean, it's raining right now, so I don't have that excuse. But it's also you haven't had as much sleep.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
also well, it's not only that I'm running on a calorie deficit at the same time. So my
yeah.
the
Are you
amount,
running out of
yeah.
fluid deficit? Because that should be what's
No, I'm
affecting
not
your.
running on a fluid deficit, just calorie.
Okay. Well, then I'll just blame it on the sleep because as long as you're hydrated, that shouldn't be happening with your eyes unless you're just overly tired.
Oh
Because
no, I'm just saying like the reason I'm rubbing my eyes is I'm tired is because I don't have the calories that I normally have.
gotcha. So the reason you're tired is you don't have fuel. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I don't really ever notice that the lack of like energy of wakefulness when I do the calorie deficit stuff. I just
Mm-hmm.
noticed a lack of like drive. Like I'm awake.
I
I just don't have any drive to do anything in those time periods. Like I'm just like I just
yeah.
want to sit here. I don't want to do anything, but I'm still awake. I don't get the luxury of getting sleepy. That being said, we're gonna close out this week with a interesting like point here. I was hoping Rich would be back before we did this. But like the way that he brought this back to Barbaricia, uh, he's bounced back forth, back forth, back forth until he brings it all to the end to tie it together, and he's basically trying to show that any level of like overall deceit, which again I disagree with Gamina, but overall deceit against your lord and the lord it would land you in one of the deepest circles of hell, and like that's kind of poignant in the 1300s because at this
Mm-hmm.
time we're dealing with like the influx of the newer, it's not really prosperity doctrine, that comes much later, but like nobles giving less in alms than they used to. Like I forget the exact reasoning, but I remember there was like a 50-year period where this started to become a real problem. And this is
Mm-hmm.
during this time period at the end of the Fourth Crusade up to about 1320ish. Um, there's a lot less alms being given. There's a lot less charity from the church being given because there's less alms being given, so on and so forth. Like at this time period, that's devastating to a region. Uh,
Yep.
it's not unlike some modern things that we've already got too political on earlier, but like this is devastating to a region. So it's like this is actually kind of poignant because this is basically saying it doesn't matter if you're clergy, it doesn't matter if you're an aristocrat, it doesn't matter if you're a fucking demon. If you fucking steal from people and leave them destitute, you belong in the deepest circle of hell. That's a pretty
Yeah.
powerful message for 1301.
Yeah. The one thing that I would say is that there's actually a saying in Japanese when it comes to what they call dorobo, or like basically burglars, is that never steal everything from the house. Leave 10% of the value of whatever you're going to steal from people, not to leave them destitute.
Yeah, I didn't know that part about Japan, but it makes sense because I know this is true in so many other cultures. Like this is true
Mm-hmm.
in certain areas of North Africa, where if you are caught like truly robbing everyone, it is considered a crime worse than murder. Like they will act like
Yeah.
this is when they break out the torture rather than just the beheading, type
Yeah.
thing. Like, dude, that like people had the right idea back in the day. Yeah, we were fucked up on all kinds of other shit, but we need to get back to some of the things that people like Dante and others have taught about empathy, as Rich was pointing out. But that empathy doesn't need to be taught in an English class. It needs to be taught by our fellow man and held to account by our fellow man. And I think with that, I'll leave it
It
as a humanist note as opposed to a political one.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because this gets into a debate that I've had with some people with regard to whether or not death is the like ultimate moral evil, because I argue that death is both the greatest single point of suffering, but also the end of suffering. Whereas there are other things that you can do to a person that may not be as great in the moment, but will cause greater long-term suffering in terms of, physical, mental.
Well, no, I'm with you, but
Pro-
here's the problem
yeah,
with this concept. And by the way, I don't disagree with you. It's just the problem with this concept is not everybody believes that death is the end of suffering.
that's fair.
That's part of why this debate is still ongoing, as opposed to somebody like you or I who can go, nah, nah, like if I do something to somebody at the wrong point in their life, I just caused 50 years of like agony where they will never have
Yeah.
a joyous day. Like that's absolute, like, to put this into perspective for you people, there is not a crime that any human could ever commit, or series of crimes, or compounded series of crimes that a human could commit that would even amount to justified that level of torture, of putting them into agonizing day-to-day torture for 50 years. That's why hell doesn't make any sense. Nobody deserves to be here. No human could ever commit a crime that warrants an eternity of this type of suffering. And we're talking about some pretty evil shit. Like, I'm not just sitting here like being like this is the reality of it. You could be an absolute monster and still not deserve what we describe in these hells that we're talking about, or even just a lifelong of like mental anguish because somebody is like caused like severe PTSD in you. They're like, there is things that are worse than death, and people need to start realizing that people do them a lot, because we need to start holding people accountable again. We used to, not in the best ways, usually in some pretty shitty ways, but we used to actually hold people accountable for this shit. Just don't go back to the old ways. We don't need burning crosses in yards. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't cool.
No. Like, shame your fellow man by example. To be like, hey, why would you think it's okay to treat somebody like that? Like, why would you think it's okay if they treated you that way? Do that. Don't do the crazy shit. We already have enough crazy shit in this world. Don't add to it. Like like, just don't. Like, there's so very, and I am an advocate for violent civil disobedience. This isn't the time to use that. This is not the time to use that, and not the situation to use that. Otherwise, you make them more callous. You make them less likely to be empathetic. That's just the truth of it. And I think that's what Dante was doing in the 1300s, when basically we had just went through like 8.5 years of like mass propaganda of anybody who is brown, speaks funny, has less money, and doesn't like recognize the emperor of the Roman Empire and these kings of Europe as their like divine rulerships that England viewed them as. They weren't even worthy of charity. They were literally worthy of letting starve in the streets and laughing at. Dante was fighting against that in this manuscript. He also fights about it in other manuscripts like De Monarchia, etc. But he's doing that in this point here, and I think that's a very pointed thing to say. And like I said, I'm really disappointed that Rich didn't make it back for this one, because I think he'd have a great little aside to add to this point.
Yep.
Anyways, I will put us on the thank you for coming stream, and I do thank you for coming. We do appreciate you, even though I didn't see anybody come in live today. I know you'll be here on the VOD, and we appreciate you. Thank you until next time.
Shadows cast by laughter's guise, they wove their charms a web of lies. I offered trust a sacred prize, but they plucked the fruit and left goodbyes. I'm a broken lighthouse on a hollow shore, once a beacon, now shining no more. They sailed away, left me to roar in an ocean of echoes. I'll forever pour. A puppet dancing to unseen hands, they spun my steps to their demands. In their carnival I joined the strands. When the curtain fell I lost my lands. I'm a broken lighthouse on a hollow shore, once a beacon, now shining no more. They sailed away, left me to roar in an ocean of echoes. I'll forever pour. I was a vault of untold gold. They shattered my locks, left stories untold. In moonless nights, my warmth grew cold. A silence so deafening, my heart was sold. They stole my dreams, spun them like thread, wove a tapestry where shadows fed. When the loom was still, my soul was bled. On the fabric of silence, their lies were spread. I'm a broken lighthouse on a hollow shore, once a beacon, now shining no more. They sailed away, left me to roar in an ocean of echoes. I'll forever pour. Now I stand, a sentinel of despair, a fractured beacon, my heart laid bare. In the quiet abyss I claim my share, a symphony of silence, a life to repair.
وعدوني بعصد مربوط جميعتي بينما نوست برشقتي يا ماء الحكمة على كشيتي في الشلال القوم الذي نهدره نجرات الياجب تنتظرك مهمرة سماوية تستحق انفللا مسافر ومجارتي حيث تتجاوز الحكاية ناتي لا نهاية لها إلا العبد تتقلب من خلال الحالات الثابتات وتتدفق تيارات جميلة وداعيا للكرة الأرضية قيادة التيار فالقصص المبهية نطفو في اللا نهاية الداخليات سنجد مسائر بشرية نكمل الرحلة البعيدة في النجوم الحائجة نحن قدسنا الشروق في مهما صيحتي حيث تتكشف الألغاز كسوفة المسير قليل هي تترسخ الرحلة لإكليليات دخول بصيرات لا توعد ولا تحصى هيت يتيم سرد الحكايات التي لا حدود لها استكشاف هذه حرب ودان هل تتكشف الأسرار المظلمات الخوض في أبد ستار حيث أتسي لفا فكر موزل تجموة الكروة الرحلة النهمية التي نمر بها استكشافة الأبادي والحكمة هلا نحيت في متناول اليد النزول إلى الغلاف المغناطيسي حكاية كونيات يجب فهمها الإبر يبرر الظواهر المنذرات يتلهم الأساطير رحلة سماوات أبرار اليوالي مع البطوليات أحلام مظلمات نكتسبوها رسم بياني ونبرر المجرات البيضاء في شيء كرمزين يطمعه كوافيل لاستكشاف الدائمي تشبه شام اللواء اشتعلت في النيران يبرر الحدود العنصريات وانفتحت تلفات تحت القماش الأسود تدور الأكثر السماويات تنفجر ربع الفضل الهلال العمياء وتدور القصص الخالدات مغامر خيال له حدود له تتكشف الأحلام المنية وفديس نجميات في الكون هاي تتمشى المغامرة يا حريب مذهلات في السيمفونيات السمايات هاي تحتمي الأحلام استكشاف العوالم التي لا تموت في قلب
In every cell, the code of life's contained. DNA's double helix where genes are framed. Adenine with thymine forms the first base pair. Cytosine with guanine locked in structure fair. But in transcription, thymine swapped with you. Uracil steps in when RNA's the cue. This message travels to ribosomes so proteins can be made. But mutations alter all in ways that can cascade. Point mutations cause the smallest change. A single nucleotide swapped within a range. Transitions switch purine for guanine, pyrimidine for the same. Transversion swap between them, disrupting the DNA's game. A silent mutation makes no change in sight. The codon shifts, but the protein's right. In this sense, mutations one amino's replaced. A change in structure, it's no longer graced. Nonsense mutations bring an early stop, shortening the protein, making production drop. These changes may seem minor at first glance, but in proteins, even one can ruin the dance. Insertions or deletions cause a frame shift shock. One base gone or added, throwing off the block. The reading frame gets misaligned. Codons now a jumbled sign. In larger scale, the genes may rearrange. Duplications, inversions vast and strange. Entire chromosomes can break and shift, causing syndromes where genes now freely drift. UV radiation, chemical interactions at play. Mutagens that scramble every other DNA. They break bonds, form lesions on the strand, causing errors the polymerase can't understand. But repair is nature's guiding hand. Proofreading enzymes work to mend the strand. Still some mutations slip through the gate, driving evolution's hand at predictable rate. radiation, chemical interactions at play, mutagens that scramble every other DNA. They break bonds, form lesions on the strand, causing errors the polymerase can't understand. But repair is nature's guiding hand. Proofreading enzymes work to mend the strand. Still some mutations slip through the gate, driving evolution's hand at predictable rates. Whoa!
Yeah. If you don't know that. I don't know it's true. I know it's true. I know it's true!
In shadows cast by twisted vines, a garden once lush, now entwined. I gave my trust a sacred sign, but they plucked the roses, left me blind. I'm a broken